What's happening in San Diego? Great Wednesday morning to you. Welcome back. It is your new midday hang. It's Annie and Elsten here with you on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Annie Halbrand's here. I'm Craig Elsten, together with Braden Suprenant in our Odyssey studios, overlooking Murphy Canyon, getting ready for 4 hours of live local San Diego sports talk with you, going until 2 o'clock. Gwen and Chris check in then, and we'll have Padres baseball later tonight, looking for 2 in a row. Looking to even up the Vetter Cup, looking to force a draw in the Vetter Cup this year, and more importantly, to get one step closer to reaching the 2024 playoffs. What's going on, Annie? How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. Happy Wednesday to everyone. How's everyone else doing?
Good. I mean, really good night last night.
Yeah, really good game for the Padres.
Absolutely. We got a good show, and we promise that we will talk about it all with you. Good morning, Braden. What's happening with you, man?
It's going. I was just talking to you guys before the show started that it's such in a grind of doing multiple things at once. I forget what day it is sometimes. Everything's based on like what we're doing at practice. So today's walkthrough day for JV, and then mini walkthrough on special teams for varsity. That's what day it is, which means it's Wednesday, I guess. Also, totally forgot what the date was going in, but obviously a very dark day in our America's history, and want to think about all the people that were affected by the September 11th attacks 23 years ago. I was in first grade when it happened. Still remember everything about that day.
Wow.
Just want to say that I never forget about that situation. So,
it was funny. I actually looked it up this morning because I was trying to. I remember absolutely where I was that morning, but I didn't remember why. So I looked it up. Back in 2000, 2001, 2002, Ben and I would alternate every other morning working on Kogo's morning newsreel show. So we'd have 1 week where he'd be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I'd be Tuesday, Thursday, and then the next week I'd be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, he'd be Tuesday, Thursday, and we'd just alternate like that. And one of the cool things that Kogo did, which was the station we were working for, was they gave us these little Comrex boxes so that, you could do those morning updates from home, because a lot of times we would be working till super late the night before on post-game shows. So I looked it up. I was Tuesday, Thursday that week. It was Tuesday, September 11th, 2001, and the Padres had an off day the day before. So I was up in Long Beach. There was actually, my wife was my fiance at the time. We would get married about 3 months later. And I had gone up there, presumably just to see her, and stayed at her apartment that night. And I did the updates from her apartment the next morning. So I was up at 5:45. And my first update was 5:45. I was up at 5:30 or whatever. And the first plane hit. And I remember going into my wife being like, "Wow, a plane hit the World Trade Center. What a crazy accident!" Because people probably don't remember unless you were living it. Like those 15 minutes,
people thought it was like a Cessna.
Right? Mm-hmm. There were 15 minutes that it was thought there was a small plane accident. One plane in. What a terrible accident! And I literally remember going in. And she was just like asleep, like, "Oh, wow, a plane hit the..." And then the second one hit. And how it changed everything. "No, honey, you got to get up. Something real's happened." And I actually worked on the radio for a good part of that morning, just doing the lame sports side of the story. Mm-hmm. Everything's closed. All the games are canceled. That is canceled, et cetera. And working that morning while trying to process the insanity of what happened that day.
Yeah, so sad. I was in class, and I remember going to New York afterwards and visiting the site, and it was just so tragic. And there was a gentleman who died, Christopher Ingrassia, who had the same name as someone that I was very close to at the time. So I wrote to his family, and then they ended up sending me this like beautiful book, this memorabilia book of Christopher. And I always look at it every year because I still have it. But I can't believe that how much time has passed too. I mean, it feels like it was yesterday in some ways.
Yeah. 23 years ago already, I went to was fortunate enough to be able to go to the great memorial that they've made in the museum. And if you haven't done it in New York, you got to do it. I think it's really fascinating. It's very interesting. They do a great tribute to everybody that that passed away in that event, and a great tribute to the firefighters and the first responders that, see a building that's on fire going down, and they're like, we're going to run in there and try to save as many people as possible. Helped lead my dad to join Urban Search and Rescue as a structural engineer, which was super cool. That he was able to do that for a little bit of time. But again, I was in first grade, and the only thing I remember seeing it on the news in my parents' room, and I remember where I was when I heard on Kogo as a kid driving to school when the second tower fell. I was on the corner of Ted Williams Parkway and Pomerado Road at the intersection that has the Outback Steakhouse. That's exactly where I was when the second tower fell. I was in first grade. I remember that. Like,
That's wild.
it's so crazy that's what I remember about it. I had a girl in my class at TCU. Her dad was on the flight that went down in Pennsylvania. So that was, that was something that was interesting. Like the 6 degrees of separation. You start like interacting with people that have been, affected by it. But never forget this day. And obviously a tragic day, but the United States came out of it. I like everything that they did to pay the tribute to everybody that passed away in that event. And again, if you haven't checked out the museum over there in New York, you got to do it. It's pretty remarkable.
Well, good way and a good note to start the show, definitely. And to be sure, now we're not going to talk 9/11 the whole day. We're going to talk Padres. We're a sports show. We're here for your departure from the mundanities of the regular day. And as such, we proceed forward with Good News Wednesday. It's a very good news Wednesday because last night was a very good night for the San Diego Padres. We talked a lot about it. 3 out of 4 losses. Still confident in this team. Needed to back it with a win. And boy, did they ever last night. That's the kind of win you're looking for, Annie. That's the kind of win that gets you to the playoffs.
Yeah, it was great to see Manny break the franchise home run record. Manny had a great night. I mean, Manny came through after getting squeezed on some pitches and had that really nice at bat for the home run, and then came through with 2 more RBI later. But the top of the lineup, really, I like that lineup. Arise 3 for 5. It was his 3rd 3-hit game in a row. Tatis 2 for 5. He had that big 3-run home run to give the Padres the lead. Profar 2 for 4. And I looked up, he's got a .419 on base percentage during a 9-game on base streak. So he's doing his part for sure. Machado 2 for 5. And then you had Donovan Solano, who ended up setting the table, I think it was Fernando, when he had that big 3-run home run, got that rally started. He was 2 for 3, and we saw Xander move over to shortstop. For you, Darvish, I thought he had a good night. I mean, he still looks like he's working his way back. Got out of that jam in the 3rd inning and was able to kind of hold steady. If you're going to give up home runs, you always want them to be solo home runs. But overall for the Padres, obviously a really, really good performance for them.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up Jurickson. Jurickson was tremendous. He got the hits because, yes, he has a .419 on-base percentage during a 9-game on-base streak, during which he's hitting .226.
But still getting on base.
Still getting on base.
Yesterday he wasn't
he's
getting
walking.
on base.
No, he's walking.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't been hitting. He was 5 for 39 coming into the game. So it's the 2 for 4 that I'm looking for.
Yeah, it was nice.
And honestly, and I know we talked lineup a lot yesterday just because it was every off day you got to talk about something, like goodness sakes. Hey, I love that lineup when it's together. Personality-wise, everyone's in the exact right place. It's sometimes the performance level that makes you wonder if someone should move up or down. But performance-wise, personality-wise, Arise, Tatis, Profar in between, Machado right there. This is a great grouping of players. Cronenworth gives you a good at-bat. Xander, you hope for more. You hope for a big September from Xander. Merrill, Solano, probably going to be Peralta today. And then the catcher, it's a perpetual motion machine. And that's the whole idea, is that there's no weak spots, there's no dead times, there's no cold pockets. That's the key, is not having cold pockets around your hot hitters. That's why we talked about Profar maybe being part of a cold pocket because of 5 for 39. 2 for 4, you hit. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's beautiful, and it looks great.
Yeah, the whole top of the lineup really did a nice job, and Cronenworth too, batting .300 with a .417 on base percentage during a 6-game on base streak. So, for sure on Xander, hopefully he's able to turn it around, and that is more a blip on the radar for him, and he's able to kind of get himself back to who he was coming off that injury, which he has come through for this team since coming back from that injury. But hopefully get that more consistency. And I kind of wonder too, like, if he needs a few games to settle in, sometimes mentally making a move on defense can mess with you a little bit on offense. So will be good to see him break out of that. But yeah, for Manny, I mean, look, 6-pitch at bat, he fouled off several sliders before he got to that fastball. Said after the game that in another year, it might have ruined his at bat. He might have struck out or just not been able to refocus after getting I think it was a squeeze on one of those strike calls, which that zone was all weird yesterday anyways. But he didn't let it affect him, and able to just really, have a good game yesterday. I thought it was great to see Fernando go opposite field. I mean, he had some power there yesterday, and that was something good to see for him in a ballpark that really doesn't have you flying out like that normally. So that was I thought a good sign from him.
100%. Wait a second. I thought I read the chat yesterday that Tatis was the whole reason the team couldn't win games, that he was single-handedly sinking the club. It was like, oh, wait, that 3-run homer that went over the fence, I guess that must have been an accident. And the incredible play in right field on the run, throwing like a shortstop from the wall to nail the dude by like a full slide step. Well, that must have just been a funny happenstance. He must have been trying to screw up the vibes and accidentally threw it to second base. Everyone out there that has this Tatis bias, he's going to knock it out of you eventually. He's going to drill it out of you big play by big play. But his presence on this team is real. It reminds me of NBA is what it reminds me of. Because there might be a day that LeBron's jumper isn't falling. And there might be a day that LeBron is turning the ball over 7 or 8 times in a game. But that doesn't change that every time down the court, the defense must respect LeBron. Every time he's on the field, Tatis is an object of attention for the other team. He is a defensive impact player. He literally changes the game. Polanco thought he had a double. He's out. That's a dramatic change in the game, and the game's win probability, in their ability to score runs, and then hitting 3-run homers. He's not going to do it every single day, but it feels like sometimes to me, Annie, that people think Fernando Tatis Jr. is supposed to get 3 hits and a homer every single day. He's a baseball player. He's not going to do that, but he impacts the game every day.
Yeah, and I liked also what he said. He said yesterday, he said, look, sometimes for me, he felt a little better playing 2 days in a row last week. They had the off day yesterday. He had an off day in between to rest him, which was totally needed and what they should be doing. But he is still coming back from an injury. So I would give him a little time, too, to kind of just get himself going a little bit in the consistency that he wants. Still figuring out how to work on that stress reaction in his leg. Talked a little bit yesterday about not, he really, where he struggles is stopping. And you saw when he made that great defensive throw to get out Polanco at second, he didn't stop. He threw on the fly, like he kept going all the way through the motion. And so there's just things for Fernando that I think he's figuring out how much he can do on that leg. And so for him offensively, to be getting back into it, I think that's all you want right now. Like just working back into it so that when the postseason does come, he's got a month of games under his belt. He should be feeling pretty good, even better hopefully by that time. So yeah, I don't get the anti-Tatis stuff either. There's not a pitcher who wants to see Tatis come up to the plate ever. Okay, they would much rather him be on the bench. So he's definitely a presence.
And once again, Manny Machado, and we'll talk about him more next segment from the specific angle of setting the franchise record, but Manny Machado going the other way. Manny Machado using the big part of the field, hitting the ball to center field, even hitting a home run to center field. It's a sign, again, of a team that continues to put a style a style of attack over the pressures of the day-to-day game. There's so much pressure, and we saw it last year. Guys always trying to pull home runs in situations where driving the ball the other way was where the hit was available. And it's something like when I hear people do anti-analytics stuff, oh, well, analytics says this or that. Where I find common ground is that analytics did push the concept of a homer as the pure ideal. Because, I mean, of course it is. Of course a homer is the best thing. You can't catch it, and all the available batters score, right? So, I mean, of course it's the best thing. But it's not trying for that every single at-bat isn't the best way to score runs in a situation. It might be the most efficient way to score runs over 700 at-bats in the course of a season, but in the course of a game, when there's runners on second and third and 2 outs, that's not the most efficient way to score because the defense gives you places that you can exploit. And the way that the Padres attack the game of baseball in 2024 is to look for areas to exploit and to exploit those areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is one of Schildt's many mantras, is to be able to take advantage of what the other team is giving you, right? For Manny, too, he'll tell you he is usually not trying to hit the home run. Like, to Craig's point there, he's trying to just move the guy over, get a good base hit it to where the defense isn't. But he gets a lot of power under it. He gets a good pitch he likes. He drives it, and that's what happens. It was a 21-degree launch angle or whatever. I mean, it was for Manny yesterday. So he tends to do those sorts of things, and that's what makes him so good. And I think when you have a guy like Jackson Merrill, who will tell you that he also, when he tries to hit home runs, he doesn't. He has to go back to just trying to get hits and move the guy over, and that's when the home runs come. I think it's good to have that, feeling when you're looking at someone like Manny and you're Jackson, and you're like, okay, this guy is telling me that, and look at what he's been able to do this season. And you look at Machado, and I mean, considering the start that he got off to at the beginning of the season, and how tough it was for him with that elbow injury and coming back from it and rehabbing from it, he has been vintage Manny Machado since about mid-June. And it's, again, with this team, that weird stat that still keeps to hold up. The Padres are now 25-0 when Machado has multiple RBIs. So continues to be obviously a big part of this team.
Well, and he's going to not only have his name in the record book, but he's going to set a number that it's going to be pretty hard for Tatis to catch. I mean, he's going to try, but we'll talk about it when we come back. Great night for the Padres in Seattle. Great night to win a game. Mets lose. Arizona wins. Still right there on your back. Atlanta wins, moves into a tie with New York for the third and final wild card spot. L.A. loses. I mean, they've lost 2 in a row. If they lose 5 in a row, we'll talk about it because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take L.A. losing a bunch of games in a row in order for you to even out standings like that. Doesn't make it impossible. We'll find out. But when we come back, Manny stands alone on the home run list. Where is he going to finish? Where's that number going to finish when it's all said and done? We'll chat about it when we come back. Scott Miller joins us at 11 o'clock to kick off our Padres Deep Dive Hour. We'll have our Hunt for October, 12 o'clock Sports Fix coming up, of course, in the midpoint of the show. Today we play, got the shirt for it, the match game today. We'll have our all-star panel together at 12:40 this afternoon to have some fun. We'll preview Game 2 between the Padres and the Mariners, and we'll wrap up the show with Ask Us Anything. Full show planned. Come back to talk some Manny next, right here on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 10:25 on the Fan. It's this time of year, man. It's pennant race time. This is the best time. We're just an extended pregame show for you. 6:40 again tonight, right, Braden?
Yes.
5:40 pregame show, Eco Water SoCal pregame show with Sam Levitt. Michael King on the mound tonight. Brian Woo for Seattle. He's very good.
The best time when you're in this.
That's it. When you're in it, this is awesome. This is the whole point.
I don't think Cardinals fans are having the same amount of fun right now.
They are not. They are not. We know last year.
That's right.
We know what it was like.
100%.
This time last year, the Padres were out of it. They were just starting their 20-7 September. And they started it with some losses, right? Because they finished it 14-2. Mm-hmm. So this time last year, the team was, kicking around 8 games under 500, still clinging to the faintest, something could happen maybe type of hopes. That's what somebody on Cardinals radio is doing today. Well, maybe if we do, no chance. No chance. It was a total drag. A total drag. And for baseball teams in cities where you are in the total drag mode, all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, do we have a football team? We don't even care about you anymore. Do we have an NBA team? Mm-hmm. Hey, when's training camp open? Let's get things started. When you have an NHL team, et cetera, et cetera. Here, without all of that, we just suffered through the September. Not anymore. That was not a playoff game last night, but it was an Annie Halbin trademark much-win game.
Yeah, and it was the kind of playoff not atmosphere, but Tanner Scott struggling, and then Jason Adam coming in and getting those huge outs, and then Robert Suarez, you needed him to get the 4 outs, and they were playoff type things that it's like, okay, if this happens, and of course it's dependent right on what happened the night before, what part of the playoffs they're in, if should they make it, but it kind of shows you, hey, we've got some contingency plans here, we've got some other weapons to go to, we've got the ability to get out of jams or big moments, and you probably feel pretty good about that, having watched a game like last night.
Absolutely. I mean, coming off a day off, you don't love to see a 4-out save from Robert Suarez. That it's something, honestly, I was wondering, are we going to even see one of those prior to the playoffs? And the answer is now yes, because we saw it last night.
Yeah.
And all 3 guys basically, Adam has to go up and down. Suarez has to go up and down. But as the boys this morning were talking about, and as we've talked about before, this is how Mike Schildt has run his bullpen all year long. He is aggressive to the point of, I will always take you out one batter before you can really make a mess. He took out Tanner Scott right when he was at that point where you could have left him in to give up a homer and turn it into a 7-6 game and completely change the course of the game. And instead it was like, no, we're going to bring in Adam to get a double play right here and to get out of the inning. And then Adam walks a couple of guys. Well, let him get through it. Nope. We're not going to let him get through it. We're going to have Suarez come in and clean up the mess you made, and then we'll see if Suarez can get through the ninth. He's done this all year long. I don't think this is a stat kept, but I believe he's got to lead the league in mid-inning reliever replacements.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know the stat either, but you're right. I mean, it sure seems like it. And this is what we've learned about Mike Schildt is he is aggressive and everything that I had read about kind of with him in St. Louis, he was the same way. Very aggressive with the bullpen usage, playing for that win that night. For the most part, when you can, right? Like there are some times that you see him not chase, but it's very rare now, honestly, and especially in the second half. So I think this is kind of what to expect, and should there be some dominoes that fall down the road? Maybe, but maybe not, and maybe this is kind of just the way it goes when you're in this kind of a pennant race and they're able to keep health on their side.
And the way I would describe it is he runs his bullpen like you would hope a manager would in the playoffs, where every win matters and we're protecting a win. Even a 90% win chance is everything.
Even a 7-3 difference.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was 7-6.
No.
7-3.
Well, it was 7-2 when
yeah.
Scott came in, and then he made it 7-3.
Yeah.
And did I think to myself a little bit like, Are you really going to use all three guys when it's 7-2? Well, the answer was yes, but the reason was because Scott actually faltered.
Right.
I think if Scott blows through that inning, probably we don't see Adam or Suarez at the end of the game. But as a point of fact, Scott did not. Scott looked pretty bad, and in came Adam to solve the situation.
And that works for them really well because they had an off day yesterday and they'll have an off day tomorrow. So you can kind of go to the bullpen pretty hard. And maybe, you know, again, like depending on the playoff run that they get, should they get there, which it looks like they will, but, you know, still waiting to completely confirm that up, right? That I think that'll be a big question, right? Is like, how do you use that? Or maybe he won't need it. Maybe his starters will go pretty far in those games, or I don't know.
He's going to need it.
How long do you let managers
he's
go
going
with
to
his
need
starters,
it,
right?
and he's going to pull his
Especially in the
starter.
playoffs.
He's going to pull his starter at the first sign of trouble.
Yeah.
And in the playoffs, he's not going to be afraid to pull Yu Darvish, Joe Musgrove, Dylan Cease in a situation where there's runners on, 2 outs, and he's facing a batter the third time. He's going to make that change. He's made it all year. And that's what I actually appreciate, is that unlike many managers who are trying to change the way they run their pitching staff as they go from the regular season to the playoffs, there's no change necessary for Mike Schildt. There's no worrying about like, well, how's he going to do this in the playoffs? It's crystal clear what he's going to do in the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's really for the whole team. I mean, that was their biggest thing coming out of the All-Star break. They want to be playing playoff baseball, feeling like they're playing, and they kind of are, honestly, right now, because they're trying to make sure they're staying in the playoffs, but they want to be playing this way so that they don't change anything. They don't flip any switch when the playoffs come. Everything is just sort of a continuation of what they've been doing for the last few months, and they would probably say all year, but really heated up after they made those moves at the trade deadline and after the All-Star break. So this is kind of the way they want it to be going, that feeling to just continue for them.
100%. But back to Manny Machado, who hit his 164th Padre homer yesterday. And he passed Nate Colbert in doing so. And, you know, I was really thinking about this, including on the way in to work today. I was trying to kind of go through the sequence in my mind because people did a podcast on it, wrote a story like, this is the strangest record of all time. How did Nate Colbert's record stand 50 years as the Padres home run leader when you've had 50 years of Padres baseball since,
right,
to break a kind of small number, 163, you know, it's 6 30 home run seasons, right? So I was really thinking about it. And Dave Winfield was supposed to break that record. But the Padres let Dave Winfield escape to free agency for the Yankees. Dave Winfield was the first truly great Padres player, but he signed a record free agent contract in New York. It was the first true example of the Padres as a franchise not keeping their great player, right? The Padres, next, Gary Sheffield should have broken that record. Gary Sheffield had over 500 homers in the big leagues, but the Padres couldn't keep Gary Sheffield, and so they traded him to the Marlins. Fred McGriff, next, should have broken that record and should have had the Padres' all-time home run record, but we couldn't keep him. We traded him to Atlanta. Adrian Gonzalez,
2 away.
should have had the record, could have had the record. We traded him to Boston. We couldn't hang on to him. To a lesser extent, it was probably the right time to go, but we let Phil Nevin go at 163 home runs,
That's right.
or 162. He was 1 or 2 off the pace. Maybe it was 161. Every step previously in the history of Padres baseball, when someone got good enough that they could maybe break that record, they became too expensive or too valuable to a bad team that they needed to be traded. And time and time and time again, those great players left San Diego. And the number one thing that changed under Peter Seidler, and he, you know, when he said he'll speak from the grave, his contracts speak from the grave, is that Manny Machado became a player that you could buy his jersey and know that it was going to stick around for the length of his career. Fernando Tatis Jr. is going to be here for the length of his career. Eventually, hopefully, Xander Bogaerts will hit over 163 home runs as a Padre as well. Who knows how many Jackson Merrill will hit and if he'll be able to stay in San Diego. Yeah, there's downsides to long-term contracts. But you know what else comes with long-term contracts? Records, history, stability. And Manny Machado is going to push that number out to a really fat number before he retires.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, this doesn't take away from what Manny's done, but Craig is right. You had to have someone who stayed with the team long enough to be able to break the record, and who they kept around long enough to be able to break the record, and they just haven't had those players. Not to say that, Manny couldn't have come along and broken those or whatnot, but you just haven't had the opportunity, you haven't had the ability. So really cool for Manny, and now he's here. He's with San Diego through 2033. That number, who's going to break that number? I mean, what kind of contracts? Maybe they'll be signing players still to 10, 15-year. Who knows by that point? Maybe they're signing them to 20-year contracts for all I know. But it is a little bit dependent on how long you're able to stay with the team.
Yeah, I mean, the only guy who should be
staying
able to,
good enough, I'm sure. Yeah,
the only guy who should be able to break Machado's record is Fernando Tatis.
Fernando has the absolute ability to do it. The question with Fernando is the health.
Yes.
The thing that helps Manny is he posts,
Yep.
and for Fernando, he can certainly do it. And maybe if they sign Jackson to a long-term contract, he could be a potential maybe, but for Fernando, the only thing that is the question mark with him is if he can stay healthy and be able to put up those numbers.
So here's a little mini deep dive for you. So yesterday it's 164 for Manny. So what would be a realistic projection for how many more homers he might hit the rest of his career? Well, I'll just look at one guy that he emulates so much and is talked about, and that's Adrian Beltre, who played until he was 39 years old. Manny will play until he's 40, but Beltre played until he was 39 years old. And I looked it up, and from his age, because Manny's 31 on 32, from his age 32 season until the end of his career, Adrian Beltre hit 204 homers. Now, he aged really well. He hit 32 homers at age 37, and that can happen. A past teammate last year, Nelson Cruz, was hitting 40 homers,
right.
35, 40 homers, in his late 30s. Manny might do that. It's not unrealistic to say that Manny could finish with 400 Padre homers, but more likely he'll finish with something like 360, 350, 360 more, and hit over 200 more homers in his career. But could he hit more than that? Absolutely he could, because he's just got the body of a home run hitter. He's got the frame of a home run hitter. More than a Beltre, more than even another guy I was looking at, Miguel Cabrera, who really stopped hitting a lot of homers when he was about 33, 34 years old. I don't really see that for Machado. I think Machado's going to be hitting at least 25, 30 home runs until he's 37, 38, 39 years old.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. And it's hard to put that cap on Manny because you're right. His body type is built that way. His the ability to see the ball and stay on top of the ball where he needs to hit it is tremendous. I mean, Manny, I saw the stat in the morning in the UT, which I didn't realize, which kind of blew my mind, but he could reach 30 homers for the 8th time. If he hits 30 homers, he's at 26 right now. Right? 26?
Yeah.
Okay. So he could reach 30 homers this year. And if he does it, it'll be the 8th time in the past 9 162-game seasons. He would be the only player in the major leagues with that many 30 home run seasons since 2015. The only player to have done it that many times since 2015 for that, at least that high of a number, So it speaks to his consistency with it and his ability, and it's hard to write him off for that.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at those peak years, age 22 to 25, and the homer numbers were 35, 37, 33, 37.
So high home run numbers.
High 30s.
Yeah.
Is mid to high 30s.
And he's in his mid 20s there, right?
Yeah. So, this year at 26, if he had been healthier at the beginning of the year,
right,
you easily could see him at 31, 32 right now and being right at that 35 kind of level. And usually power is something that will stick around for a little while for a player like Manny. So I think he'll be well over 300 Padre homers, and there's a decent chance he'll hit 400 homers as a Padre. Also, just think about this. Last night's homer was also the 339th of his career. So he's like 2 or 3 years away from crossing 400 homers, and that barring health consistency, he's certainly got the contract to stick around. This is going to be a 500, and it could be a 600 career home run hitter.
Yeah, and Manny is someone who will talk about how he'll get a little disgruntled when people write off players for their age, which is something that I love about him, because he's like, stop disrespecting the post 30-year-old player, because that player sometimes, as we've seen, around the league, can grow into an even better hitter, right? They understand themselves very well. Maybe they don't have all the same tools that they had when they were a little bit younger. Maybe the speed drops off. Maybe a few things drop off here or there. But just as much as it can regress, it can also progress because of the ability to just understand the game and themselves and what they're able to do so much better than someone who's just kind of working their way into the big leagues and, still trying to figure out pitchers and everything. I mean, Manny's got a good understanding of what he's facing pretty much every time he's at the plate.
When we come back on Annie and Elsten, we talked about it last Friday. We talked about it yesterday. Today, we get to react because Xander made the move. Bogarts to shortstop, Solano into the lineup. How has that changed the Padres' attack going into the postseason, and what might it look like even tonight? We'll talk about it more as we continue. Annie and Elsten here with you till 2 o'clock. Padres baseball at 6:40. Heading to the playoffs, fighting for the pennant. Right here on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. This hour on 97.3 The Fans brought to you by the California Department of Transportation. They've got an important message for you. Eastbound Interstate 8 will close from Jackson Drive to Route 67 starting 9 o'clock on Friday and continuing through 5 a.m. on Monday. Follow the detour signs on Route 125 if you're in the area and give yourself more time to reach your destination. So Jackson to Route 67 closed from Friday night to 5 a.m. Monday morning. Closed all weekend. They got work to do.
Take notice. Leave earlier if you have to.
And they're going to be spinning you up the 125 and across the 52 and down the 67. That's what they're going to be doing.
It's always a little discombobulating, so be ready.
That'll be an extra 12, 15 minutes. Plus, having to route everyone through all that will put the traffic wrong. But it's the weekend, so it should be okay. Good luck to that. Scott Miller's coming up in our next segment to kick off our Padres Deep Dive Hour. Looking forward to chatting with Scotty and seeing his thoughts, not just on the San Diego Padres, but on all the races as a whole, on some of the other big MLB storylines. Heading down the stretch now, 16 games left. I was about to say an NFL season left, but I guess that was yesterday now. 17 games.
17 games. And soon I'm sure it'll be 18.
I know.
Player safety.
My whole life I used this as a bit, like every 16 games of a baseball season is a tenth of the schedule. But every game in the NFL feels like basically 10 Major League Baseball games.
Yeah.
In terms of importance.
It's true. I mean, I look at them now and it's like, we were just living that life, 10 years ago or whatever, but a whole week between games?
Right.
What is that?
We get mad when there's a day.
It's funny. I run
games.
into NFL writers or people who are either NFL beat writers or who have been baseball or vice versa. And they all say baseball is the hardest season. It is the most difficult season just because the length of it, the amount of games, the amount of game stories you have to write, the amount of coverage you have to do. No other beat really compares. And
as everyone who does that beat knows, if you're not there every day, you might as well not be there. So that's something I learned a long time ago. And I'm like, cool, then I'm not going to show up one time every 3 homestands and act like I know all you guys. Like I'll either be there every day or I'm not going to be there because, and by contrast, Danny, you're down there pretty much every day when the season is going along with maybe a day or two that you're not. But you could speak to it. It's because they won't trust you if they don't see you all the time.
Yeah, they have to see you around and they have to know that you're coming consistently and willing to be there on the days that nothing happens, right? Willing to be there through the grindy days when you maybe aren't getting, and believe me, there's most of the time, just like how they strike out 70% and get 3 hits out of 10, we tend to strike out in the clubhouse 70%. And 3 days out of those 10, you might get something. In 7 days, you're probably just kind of hanging on. So, but it's kind of the way it goes.
It is. With that, one of the things you've talked to a player about for a while is Xander Bogaerts in his position. You guys talked in the first half of the year beyond just the numbers for Xander as to how the physical change from shortstop to second base was a little bit more than maybe he anticipated in terms of weird things that from the outside, from someone who's a non-athlete, somebody who's just there treating them like robots, you're like, oh, hush up, oh, my hips hurt because I've transitioned from shortstop to second base. But it's a real thing. There's a real change going from a position where you're facing first base to a position where your back is turned all the time.
Yeah, and I thought he made a few comments. Xander made a few comments yesterday how the arm slot is different. It's more of a side slot. At second, it's more of an over-the-shoulder kind of slot. At short, the throws are a little bit longer. The dives are a little bit harder at short. There's probably more dives when you're playing shortstop. So there were, for him, concerns going initially from shortstop to second because he didn't get a chance to work on it in the offseason. And that's the conversation Craig is referring to that Xander and I had about just the difficulty that he had in doing that when your body, like he said, is so used to being angled one direction and has been for 11 seasons. And that's the position you've played exclusively. And now you are in a shortened spring training, going to Korea and right smack dab at second base, and it kind of threw his body out of whack. His body had a different kind of soreness, a different kind of feel to it, he said, and that's why when he did hurt his shoulder on that dive that he took early in the season, he spent a lot of time working at second base. I mean, a lot of time working on his footwork, working on his angles, and when he came back from that injury, he said, "I finally feel really good. This is what I want to feel like. This is what I want my body to feel like." And he didn't blame his hitting on that, but it was a good thing for him. It coincided when he came back from injury. He was able to do a lot more at the plate as well. So to me, with this move to shortstop, I don't think it was his preference. He did this for the team, just like he moved for the team in the beginning of spring training, the first day of spring training, when they asked him to move to second base. He was pretty much asked/told to make the move to shortstop now. And he made the move to shortstop, and he did it for the team. And it's probably not the most comfortable thing for him, although he can play short. It's not that he can't play shortstop. He can play shortstop with no problem. It's just he didn't want to throw his body out of whack again. He wants to be his best self going into the playoffs as well, right?
Sure. And in an ideal world, he'd stay at second base. What no one understands, because how could they, is what the Padres' long-term plan is. They moved him off shortstop in the second year of an 11-year contract, knowing that their incumbent was an outgoing free agent. So it didn't feel like a move designed with long-term planning around the shortstop position. It felt like a move designed to say, Xander, you're just not going to be a shortstop the rest of your career. We don't think shortstop is the position for you for the rest of your career. And otherwise, what were we doing? Why would you move him off the position to move him back on the position a year later?
But why move him? I mean, you could also argue why move him when you didn't know what was going to happen with Ha-Seong Kim. Let him stay in that position one more year,
Yeah.
And I think for him too, it's not a feelings thing. It's not like, oh, because Xander is the teamiest of team guys. We talk about a lot of guys in that clubhouse. I will tell you right now, he exudes team. He is team first all the way. But how blindsided when you get to spring training and the position you've played for 11 seasons and you're pretty much your entire major league career. I think it's 11. Is it 11, 12? I don't know. He's been playing a long time. It's a long time he's been playing shortstop.
Yes.
You find out the first day of spring training, and he took it like a champ and said, no problem. I'm going to do this for the team. This is what's best for the team. And he even said yesterday, the best position at shortstop is not me. It's Mason McCoy.
Right.
If it's not Ha-Seong Kim, it's Mason McCoy. But we've got to get Donovan Solano's bat in the lineup, and it's no disrespect to Mason McCoy. He did a terrific job. He did what the team needed him to do. But we've got to get Donovan Solano and David Peralta's bats into the lineup because we need them. It's all about winning from this point on. It's not about your individual stats. It's not about what you do. It's all about winning games. And this is from a guy who's won multiple World Series. He knows what it means to win at this point of the year and what that path is. So I just think, there's I see a lot of weirdness about Xander, and I don't get it. Personally, I don't get it. But he really, you have to look at this like he made a team move, and he did it both times against maybe what he was feeling personally himself.
Yes. And the bottom line is this is an offensive change for the San Diego Padres.
We saw it play out yesterday.
Yeah. They know they're weakening their defense slightly in order to improve their offense. What they hope is more than the defense got decreased. And I think so far, so great. We're back with the Padres Deep Dive Hour, and it kicks off with Scott Miller next. Back with you for hour number 2. Welcome back, everybody. It's Andy and Elsten here with you on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. It's your Padres Deep Dive Hour, and that is brought to you by Frozen Ropes Baseball and Softball Training Facilities. Now introducing the Freezy Batting Cage membership for only $79 a month. For more information, visit San Diego FrozenRopes.com. Annie Heilbrunn, Craig Elsten back with you with Braden Suprenant. Looking to catch up with Scott Miller either in this segment or shortly within the hour. We got plenty to chat through, though, after last night's victory in Seattle. Nice 7-3 win over the Mariners. Get things started on the right foot. The Vetter Cup Series now 1-2. Going to the fateful fourth and final game tonight, Annie, where while we know that the mythical cup will remain in the mythical cupboard of the Mariners, somewhere back by like the promotions closet, in their ballpark, you can even up the season series by getting a win today. And while it seems meaningless, it's dang meaningful with 16 games left in the season.
Yeah, and man, the Mariners offense too. You know, they had guys on base. Like, they had opportunities. Julio Rodriguez was 0 for 5. I mean, it really highlighted, I think, yesterday their offensive struggles. And obviously, when it worked out well for the Padres, they put up enough runs themselves, and the pitching was able to hold it down. But you could really see with the Mariners, like, how frustrating of a season it's been for them to – it's not like they're guided bad to start, not at all, you know. But the Padres were able to capitalize on him, and the Mariners, I think, left – I don't know, a few on base in the third inning, and then guy at third they couldn't bring home later, and just kind of struggled.
Well, that's Seattle. They're not a good offensive team. They haven't been a good offensive team pretty much all season. That's how they blew a 10-game lead in their division, is because they had this great pitching that you could rely on, and when they score, take the lead, you know, get 4 or 5 runs, the Mariners are pretty tough to beat. Thing is, they usually get 2 or 3 runs. And last night they got 3, but the Padres were already all the way out to 7 and took care of business. I thought the matchup against George Kirby was going to be a good matchup for San Diego because Kirby's so around the plate. Mm-hmm. He's just a relentless strike thrower. One of the notes I saw is that he has fewer walks than starts in his career. Like, that's nuts. So he's a guy who's always around the plate. Well, the Padres love that. The Padres love guys who are around the plate who are feeding them strikes because they're a strike-hitting team. Brian Wu is a little bit more of an electric guy, big fastball, big slider, more of a swing-and-miss chase type pitcher, and it'll be interesting to see how that matchup works tonight.
Yeah, first time through the lineup for George Kirby, no problem. Right? Second time, except for Donovan Solano. Second time through the lineup, it was like they were on him and they were able to work those counts. And like you said, just a good matchup there. Wu, they haven't faced, right? So they haven't. This is his first career appearance against the Padres. So he's been doing really well.
It'll be interesting tonight. Certainly the thing I was paying the most attention to yesterday was how Yu Darvish did. We spent a whole segment talking about it, another segment, you know, kind of going through it once again. Because, listen, we have our career expectations from Yu Darvish. We have our Padre expectations for Yu Darvish. But I don't think it was fair to put almost any expectation on a year when you've barely seen the guy for months. He was literally not allowed to interact with the Padre coaches, with the Padre trainers. They couldn't watch him pitch. If he threw at a high school, they couldn't be there. So coming back and wobbling the way he did on Labor Day made you wonder. You had to wonder. It was natural to wonder what's going to be there for Yu Darvish. First couple of innings didn't really add a ton into the confidence bucket. But I think the last 3 innings showed you the guy that you want and the guy that you hope is going to be a huge part of a postseason.
Absolutely. And like I said earlier, if you're going to give up home runs, the solo homer is what you want to give up, and that's what he did. And it was a little concerning because the last start he had, he was also giving up some home runs, and so it felt like, oh no, is it just carrying over, right? Gave up a home run in the first inning, gave up a home run in the second inning, and then got into trouble in the third inning, but locked in, was able to work out of it, got some help from his friend, Fernando Tatis Jr. with the lead to make it 3-2. And then he was able to look like to lock in and be more like Yu Darvish, and said he felt good after the game. And he said getting out of that jam in that third was when he felt his mechanics really click for him. So hopefully that's a good sign for him going forward. Didn't throw that many pitches, 60-something pitches, but hopefully a good sign for him to build on going forward.
He probably has 3 starts left until the playoffs. And it's crazy for a guy who was signed here for the next 4 years or something to say anything about audition. Everyone knows what Darvish can do for this team. They'd take him on faith alone, probably, if they had to. But I think in reality, the 3 starts are a little bit of an audition, at least for the first round of the playoffs. It'd be one thing if there was a bye, but the first round of the playoffs, and we are going to get into this in today's Deep Dive Hour, I think there's a very, very legitimate question in terms of you're going to line up 3 starters and only 3 starters out of this grouping in a must-win scenario. Who are the 3 guys that you want to give the ball to in that first round of the playoffs?
Yeah, it's going to be a good question leading in. And I think, honestly, like the starts that are remaining are going to tell us a few things, right? You want to go with the guy that's feeling healthy, feeling good, feeling most consistent. Right now, you're looking at, I mean, who are you looking at? You're looking at Michael King? Are you hoping Dylan Cease has kind of gotten out of his rough stretch and back into his good stretch, which is very possible to happen by then? Definitely, to me, Joe is a given. I would think Darvish is a given too. It's going to be interesting.
Right now, I think 2 spots are pretty much beyond reproach. I think no matter what, Dylan Cease will start game 2 for San Diego, unless the last week and the needs for games 160, 161, 162, they need to pitch Cease somewhere in there, and it winds up leaving him unavailable for one of the first 2 games of a playoff. I think he starts one of the first 2 games, and I think it's game 2. I think he'll start game 2 for San Diego. I think Joe Musgrove probably will start game 1 for San Diego. I think he's come back to a performance level, a 10-pitch stretch notwithstanding on Sunday. He's come back to a performance level that matches his leadership within the clubhouse, it matches his stature in the clubhouse. That 3rd spot is a really interesting discussion. And as we continue forward here on the deep dive, I keep looking over my shoulder, but I don't think we got Scotty for this segment. So
we tried calling him?
Yeah, Braden called him a little bit ago.
I've gotten his voicemail a couple times. I texted him, no response.
Fair enough.
Well, yeah.
So if not, I got to talk about Michael King. Today's starter, Michael King. A guy that they're asking to pitch on 4 days rest. Michael King as well today. When previously they've been going like, take a week. The reason why the Padres are doing that is because Michael King has been the team's most effective starter in the second half of the season. He's been number 1. And I think you could make an argument, and I'll try to make it. I'm not saying I necessarily believe it, but I'll make the argument that he should maybe start game number 1 for the Padres in the playoffs. It's because this player, Annie, has tangibly improved all season long and has maintained that performance level for a good 4 months now.
I think there's an argument for it. If you don't see any kind of drop off for him going forward in these next few weeks, I think that there's, for sure, you got to consider Michael King. He's been really consistent for this team. He has improved. And if he doesn't start, if for some reason Michael King is not, part of that starting lineup for the rotation in that, first wild card series or whatever, you got to look at Michael King as a guy who brought you to the finish line. Because as long as there's no drop off, as long as there isn't any kind of big change to him, he is someone now that they're leaning on. They're depending on. They're like, okay, we gave him a little time off in between starts, and now we need this guy to take the ball more so that we can make sure that we are where we want to be come the end of September and slotted the way we want to be in the wild card race. Michael King's going to be a big part of the story, and I think they got to look at that. Look at what he's been able to do.
Well, let's tell.
Sure, they are.
Of course, right? Of course they are, right? But let's tell a little bit about this story because I remember very well a deep dive that we did right at the end of April, this same hour at the end of April, and it was looking at both Michael King and Joe Musgrove at their fastballs as being, at that time, the worst and second worst rated in all of Major League Baseball. And we pulled up Michael King's Baseball Savant page that day and put it up on, and that's a little hint, Braden, if you could find that for as we continue forward to look at where it is now. We looked at his page, and his fastball was the dark blue on the furthest left of the slider. It was as little a value pitch as existed in baseball. Why? Because in his first 7 appearances, which was 6 starts and 1 relief in Tokyo, in March and April, Michael King allowed 10 homers in 36 innings pitched, and 8 of the 10 homers he allowed were off of his fastball. He was leaving it right over the middle of the plate, right? And it was getting hammered.
Right.
Well, since then, from May 1st onward, Michael King has thrown 120 and 2/3 innings for this Padres team. He's allowed 7 homers. Mm-hmm. That's it.
He's really improved, really figured out how to take what he's great at as a reliever and become a starting pitcher. And he struggled with that at the beginning of the season, but he has really worked on his pitch mix and how hard he goes through each time of the lineup, kind of finessing that approach a little bit, and it's paid off for him.
By contrast, since May 1st, Dylan Cease has given up 16 homers for the Padres. Michael King's given up 7. So he has done an incredible job with that mix of keeping the ball in the yard, of keeping hitters off balance. But wait, wasn't he walking a lot of guys at the beginning of the year? Yes, he was. In March and April, Michael King walked 21 batters in 36 innings. A very high total, which you might remember had 7 on the home opener or his first home start. He walked 7 Giants. Since then, again, 120 and 2/3 innings, he's only walked 37 batters in that period of time. So he has combined very few walks with very few homers allowed. Guess what that adds up to? That adds up to huge value to your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's a big piece of this rotation and had that little comebacker or whatever that sidelined him for about 10 days. And beyond that, just kind of like Seth Lugo did, right? And beyond that, has just been able to be a consistent piece of this rotation day in and day out.
Now, one of the things that really sets King apart is when you get into a deep dive, is that he's extremely balanced against left-handed and right-handed hitters. When you watch him, you understand why. It's because he has a breaking ball that will break right to left, the sweeper. He has the changeup that drops down, and then he's got the 2-seam fastball that runs left to right. So combine that with the 4-seam fastball, which is a fairly straight pitch, but which he has sequenced so much better. And a lot of times tunneling out of the same spot, the ball can go straight, left, right, or down, almost like a video game type situation. When he's in command and locked in, he's got the ability to spin it just like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fun to watch.
So it makes him really tough against lefties and righties. His numbers are extraordinarily balanced, which is something you love to see in the playoffs because it means you don't have that, we're going to stack 7 lefties against you, build an advantage, build a 4-0 lead, put you into your bullpen, right?
That could be a huge advantage for the Padres, absolutely.
100%. And Braden is showing those 2024 sliders. If you go back to 2023, go ahead and click 2023. Look how similar they are. Now, what he did with the Yankees 2023 to what he has done with the Padres in 2024. Literally almost identical across the board, including that fastball run value going all the way up to 65th percentile. So it went from 2nd percentile at the beginning of the year after the first month all the way up to 65th.
Really, really good. And he's also figured out how to rehab properly, how to rest and recover properly, how to be part of a starting rotation throughout an entire season. And it's something that he wasn't going to get the chance to do with the Yankees, getting the chance to do that with the Padres. And it's really paying off that kind of a, risk a little bit that the front office took for the Padres too, to say, look, this guy wants to do this. We believe he can do this, just like they did with Seth Lugo. And this is 2 years in a row now also for Ruben Niebla that he's had two guys come from the bullpen and work into a starting rotation with success.
Bottom line, I look at this, I do the research, I do the deep dive, and I find it very difficult to make an argument that he is not one of your two best pitchers this year, which means it makes it very hard for me to make an argument that he shouldn't get the ball in game 1 or game 2 of a 3-game series for the San Diego Padres. And that while I understand how it might not happen, I understand it. That doesn't mean necessarily it's the right decision. Yes, Michael King has been a reliever, but he hasn't been a reliever since March. He's been a reliever in his career, but not since March. He's been only a starter all this time, and what he's done as a starter has been tremendous. So while we think about like, oh, well, you could drop him in the bullpen, maybe he'll play up there. I've also seen, and now I'm getting away from statistical to anecdotal for just a second, but I've seen throughout my life starters drop into the bullpen in playoff situations and blow up. Sometimes it works. Just as many times it doesn't work, and it blows up, and it's the last thing you see from their team before they disappear into the dugout until the next spring training. So right now, today, I think the merit argument is that King starts game 1 and maybe Musgrove 2. From a consistency standpoint, I would be, as crazy as it sounds for a guy with over 200 strikeouts, from a pure consistency standpoint, must win, all the chips are in the middle. I think Dylan Cease is your third or fourth most reliable starter right now. The number 1 most electric, but from a reliability standpoint, starting him over King, I can't really make a qualitative argument for it.
Yeah, I think that it's a good argument to have, a good thing to look at. I mean, there's how many starts are they going to get? Maybe
about three each the rest of the way.
I think that's going to tell a lot to this team. I'm sure that they're kind of looking at these same things and kind of maybe putting it out in their head, but how a guy is feeling, how things could change in the next few weeks. But if things stay the same, it's a good problem to have, and one that they will have to kind of labor on a little bit, because there are some really good options there.
Yeah. Hey, this is what we do in the deep dive. We put it all out there. The goal is to make you a smarter, better informed fan and make your own decision. These are the same things as Annie just said. Niebla might be in there for all we know. The door's closed and he's in there pounding his notepad going, we need to start King. And Schildt's like, I don't know, man. Use 38. He's got all the veteran savvy in the world. Don't you want that on the mound? When all the chips are down, you do. But can you point away from this guy's performance? Well, what about Cease, that slider, that 99-mile-an-hour fastball? You want that. But can you point to this guy's performance and tell me why he shouldn't start? It's a good situation to have. Let's see how Michael King handles it when he gets the rock tonight against Brian Wu and the Mariners. Another great start from King. And maybe we'll say the same thing tomorrow. Who knows? When we come back on the Padres Deep Dive Hour, we'll take a look at the hunt for October and how things have changed as a result of yesterday's results. Doing this for you every day until the champagne flows. That's a good way to put it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless Sammy Levitt walks in, because where Sammy goes, champagne flows. I heard that promo. Mm-hmm. So Sammy will be walking in here later. Thought I kind of smelled the champagne. Just a little bit. Maybe he was pre-celebrating. We're back with the hunt for October next on the Padres Deep Dive Hour right here on The Fan. Baseball coverage on 97.3 The Fan is presented by T-Mobile. Switch to T-Mobile and you can get tons of benefits. Still save on every plan versus AT&T and Verizon. Use their savings calculator and find out how. Go to T-Mobile.com/switch. Scott Miller will join us in our next segment at 11:35. So looking forward to chatting with Scotty. It all came together perfectly for the show.
Yes, and it's always great to have Scotty on, and he brings such a great perspective of the Padres, but also everything around Major League Baseball.
With that, let's get to the hunt for October for today and get you up to date on what's going on. Padres now 82 and 64. Hey, let's stop for a moment and pour one out for the 2023 team that finished with 82 wins. Mm-hmm. We've got 82 with 16 to go. Could you imagine if the Padres finished with 14 wins in 16 games like they did last year? 96-win season?
Really good.
If the Padres finished 14-2 down the stretch, of course, that would have to include, by definition, at least one win against Los Angeles because they play them 3 times. L.A., which is 86 and 59, and they, too, I'm just making sure I'm doing the math. They have 17 games left to go. They would have to go 11-6 to repel the Padres because the Padres do own the tiebreaker over the LA Dodgers this year. Is it a fruitful pursuit? Not yet, but it's just going to take LA losing some games. But that I think that's a fair parameter, though. Annie, 14-2, right? That's a crazy finish. That's how the Padres finished last year, 14-2. That's top of range, right?
Yeah, it's possible.
It's not impossible,
right.
But that's like the very, 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 very best you could ever hope for would be 14-2. And the Dodgers would still just need to go 11-6, and there would be nothing that we could do about it. But 11-6 isn't nothing. It means if you did go 14-2 and they went 500-ish, you could win the NL West.
They lost the last 2 in a row, didn't they, the Dodgers? They lost the first 2 to the Cubs. And,
they did.
You just never know, right? It's September. You never know who's going to slide and who's going to take off. And the Padres did their part, certainly last night, especially with the Mets losing, too, did their part to just continue their dominance in that wild card spot, that top wild card spot. Yeah,
that's really where it's at. I mean, the Padres are just a half game away from being on the road in the first round, but they're 4.5 games away from the division. So it's staying extraordinarily tight and extraordinarily fun all the way down the stretch.
But if they stay within range and then you get to that last series with the Dodgers, I mean that's going to be big.
I think the real range would be 2. The real range would be 2, right? Because if you start that series 3 games out, you're 3 games out with 6 to play. They win 1. You're 4 games out with 5 to play. It's all, but it's basically they have to lose every single game and we have to win every single game the rest of the way. If you're 2 games out, you win 2 out of 3. You walk out of LA 1 game out going into the final weekend in Arizona. I mean, to be very honest with you, I think it's a mixed bag. Because now you're playing all 3 of those games potentially as playoff games. And that's not necessarily your goal at the end of the year. The goal should be, if you're going to be in that wild card round, for game 162 to be a reset game for you so that you've got everything going, full foot forward for game 1 of the playoffs 2 days later.
Yeah, that's where it gets really, really interesting because if you do sell out for the division, which I'm not saying isn't a worthy thing to do, you still have 3 more games against the guy. If the Arizona Diamondbacks stay in contention the way they have, you have to be careful that if you're only like 1 game above the Dodgers, that you don't kind of lose to the Diamondbacks, and then the Dodgers beat their last team for the end of the season, and you've now used all your good pitchers, who knows in what order, whatever, and now you've got the playoffs in 1 day, right? So I think it's a lot of math to figure out, honestly, because there's so many scenarios and options right there that could happen. And then, in the next 10 games, things could be very different. And maybe the Padres take a huge lead and they're able to set themselves apart in one way or another. But if it's very close there at the end, you've got to think big picture, and that is playoffs as well as what you're trying to win there in the final 6 games.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, if you're listening to this segment every week or every day, I'm looking at the loss column. So Dodgers are at 59, and San Diego and Arizona are both at 64. The difference right now is that the Padres have played one more game than Arizona. They've got 82 wins to Arizona's 81. But Arizona next week will make that up and play a bonus game in Milwaukee, and that then things will be even up. But so that number is 5. So really, LA, they've lost 2 in a row. If they lose 5 in a row, then, we can talk about it. Otherwise, keep it in the back of your mind. Don't worry about it. Let's look at that wild card where San Diego is at 64 losses, Arizona 64 losses. And now, thanks to Toronto not throwing it away yesterday like they had thrown it away the day before, New York and Atlanta at 66 losses. Chicago trying to hang in there, but they're at 70 losses. There's 6 behind you in the loss column.
Yeah,
so
Chicago's trying. Don't know if they're going to do it, but they're hanging around, but it looks pretty far back for them still.
It really does. And it leads to a weekend that's going to be extremely interesting because you've got Arizona hosting. They play great at home, so keep that in mind. But Arizona hosting Milwaukee, the Padres in San Francisco, and the Mets in Philly, while Atlanta hosts the Dodgers. Keep an eye on the Cubs. The Cubs are in Colorado. But right there, that's moving day. That's Saturday at the tournament in the majors. That's moving day. If you can you got to take care of San Francisco this weekend. Beat up on San Francisco. If you beat up on San Francisco, I feel almost guarantee you gain 1 or 2 games on the field, on the whole field. And you could be looking at this going, yeah, well, now we've got a 2-game lead for the top wild card spot, and we've got a 4-game lead for the cut line going into the last 4 series of the year. You feel amazing about your chances. Again, this is why yesterday's win was so important. Why today is so important. It sets you up for a weekend where you can actually really take that major next step forward that gets you to the playoffs.
And Atlanta won 12-0 yesterday, right? They were playing the Washington, is that right? Do I have?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they beat up on Matt Gore with some errors behind him.
Yeah. So now, and then they have 4 against the Dodgers.
Yep.
So I mean, look, you look at honestly, you look at the Mets, and the Mets have 3 against Philly, which they could make up when they hit Washington, but then they got 3 more against Philly. So yeah, it's going to be very close between here, the Mets and Atlanta, and then if San Diego and Arizona can just kind of keep their hold. This Atlanta and the Mets might just be like jockeying back and forth here, or because I don't know. These are hard. Now that on paper they look pretty hard. 4 against the Dodgers for Atlanta, and then obviously the Mets have 6 against Philadelphia.
Yeah, 7 actually.
7.
Yeah, they've got 7 against Philly. They've got 3 against Atlanta. They finished the year in Milwaukee for 3. Although the Brewers will have easily won the division by that point, so the Brewers will. Unless they're fighting for a bye, they're going to be setting their rotation and playing for chuckles in those games. But honestly, the Mets could be playing for chuckles in those games by that point if San Diego takes care of business this weekend, and then when the Mets and Atlanta play each other, Atlanta wins, the Mets will be out of it. So it's getting a lot closer. The needs are clear and tangible now, and it's so much a better situation than it's been in many previous pennant races for the San Diego Padres. They are in a strong position and looking at a schedule that, at least in the interim short term, is favorable in terms of who they're playing versus who everyone else is playing. Now, what happens? That's baseball. That's why they play the games, as has been famously said. But the hunt for October today, pretty smooth sailing for the Padres. It looks like a clear sky and a clear sea. When we come back, Scott Miller is in the on deck circle. He's ready to join us next as the Padres Deep Dive Hour continues. It's presented by Frozen Ropes, baseball and softball training facilities on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 11:40 on the Fan. Welcome back. Winding down the Padres Deep Dive Hour with you on Annie and Elsten. We'll be back with the 12 o'clock Sports Fix at the top of the hour. And, of course, we got Padres baseball tonight at 6:40 against the Seattle Mariners. Right now, we are thrilled to welcome back Scott Miller, New York Times contributor, longtime baseball writer, San Diegan, friend of the show, a multiple-time contributor to this particular hour of our programming. And Scotty joins us on the 97.3 The Fan hotline right now. Mr. Miller, Craig and Annie back with you. It is always a pleasure to chat with you.
Hey, Craig and Annie, nice to be with you. And at first, I'm like half an hour late, so I apologize. I got mixed up with my timing, but I'm going to tell you, it's all Pink's fault.
It's all Pink's fault?
Pink.
Been trying to get tickets?
Yeah, I'm going to blame it on Pink. Yeah, so here's the deal. My wife loves Pink. I got tickets to see Pink tonight at Petco Park a while ago. Anyway, from there, we had 4 tickets, weren't sure it was going to go. So last minute, some lifelong friends from Michigan, Gretchen's, my daughter's godparents, old college buddy of mine, lifelong friends, they made an impromptu last-minute flight from Michigan. They're going to the show with us tonight. So anyway, they got here last night, and I know I was supposed to be on 11:05, but my buddy Tim and I went out to walk my dog, and we got to talking, and I completely lost track of time. So if not for the Pink show tonight, they wouldn't be here, and I would have been on time. So it's all Pink's fault.
It's all Pink's fault.
Blame Pink. That is a great connection, and one we will accept, Scotty. One we will accept.
Well, let's talk some baseball now. Now that the dog walks over, let's get into it. And I just think last night was a huge win for this Padres organization in Seattle. I'm not going to minimize it. It was going to be a 3-game losing streak if it goes the other way, but that was a huge step forward last night.
It was. I mean, on multiple levels. Darvish, first of all, if they're going to go do what they hope they can do in October, it's got to be all hands on deck. And, Darvish in his second start back, showed some progress, and that's a huge thing. With Ha-Sung Kim looking like who knows if he'll return this year, moving Bogarts over to shortstop and that whole chain reaction, making sure you get Donovan Solano some at-bats. So from a personnel standpoint, I think things went really well last night, and it portends good things in the future. I think to your point, to not have a 3-game losing streak. And also, oh, by the way, the Dodgers, they've got rotation issues, but their bullpen is supposed to be one of their strengths. And boy, did they cough that one up last night. And so the Padres win also, who knows where the division's going to go, but, they're hanging in there with the Dodgers.
I mean, this National League wildcard race, Scotty, it doesn't seem to be letting up at all. And we've been seeing with the Padres, I've jokingly called it a magic carpet ride at times because out of the All-Star break, they, seems like things just kind of have been going their way and they've been able to get the wins when they need them. What is the thing, you've watched so much baseball and so many of these really tight races. What is the thing that a team needs to watch out for at this point? Like, what do you think is the biggest kind of obstacle to a team that's sort of barreling toward the postseason for anybody in this wild card race?
Well, I'd say first, it's kind of a cliche, but injuries. A lot of baseball and a lot of injuries are like when they happen, and it's like the Padres, Fernando Tatis has missed so much time, right? Well, you look at it, it's like, well, if he had to miss that time, good thing it started way back early in the season, and he's back now. So, with all hands on deck, if, whether it's a Tatis or a Darvish or whoever it is, it's really hard to absorb injuries at this time of year because there's just not enough calendar and schedule left to combat the attrition. So I think that's number one. And then secondly, I mentioned the Dodgers last night, and I mean, look, they're obviously still the odds-on favorites to win the division, the heavy favorites to win the division, but bullpen, they give up, 5 runs in the 8th inning to the Cubs last night, blowing games by the bullpen. And even take it south from L.A., come back to our place, San Diego, what game was it? Was it the Friday game against the Giants, or was it one of the games against the Tigers?
Thursday against the Tigers, yeah.
Suarez, right. Remember what a tough loss that was. So this time of year, going down the stretch, I think injuries can derail things, and beyond that, blowing bullpen games that can, when you have a victory and then you just let it slip away, and every game is so important, that can really dispirit a team.
Yes.
You talk about the Dodgers. And I don't like talking about the Dodgers too much, but the Dodgers are just I keep coming back to something, and Braden has said it since the start of this show back in January. Like, this is a franchise that is great at the regular season. Yep. And it's a backhanded compliment. It really is. It's a backhanded compliment because, Otani might get 50-50. He is running his gas tank down in September. But come 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now, who's their game one starter? Who do they give the ball to in the 7th, the 8th, the 9th? God forbid they get into a 3-game series where one mistake could knock them out entirely, but in a 5-game series, a best 3 out of 5, one of those games can be the complete difference. And I feel like LA's got, honestly, more question marks than many of the contenders.
That's what's, to me, so interesting about this particular season, and especially what's going to be interesting about October, because, you're right, Craig. The Dodgers have no idea. Their rotation is, a complete mystery at this point. I mean, Walker Buehler's back, but he pitched the other day. He's nowhere close to the Walker Buehler that he once was. And you look around, and I say it's interesting about this year because the Dodgers, for the longest time, had the best record in baseball. Now, the Phillies have passed them. Look at the standings, but they still have the second best record in the National League. The Yankees had the best record in the American League. They're tied now with Cleveland at a .572 winning percentage. Reason I bring the Yankees up: Yankees and Dodgers, two of the best records in the game. Dodgers are no idea what their rotation is going to be in October. They're very nervous about it. The Yankees bullpen has been a mess. They don't know how things are going to piece together yet for them in October. And so here you go. You've got two of the three best records in the game. And even at that, one's worried about its rotation in October. One's worried about its bullpen in October. So it's going to keep the field wide open. I think there's really nobody you can point to and say, okay, that's the team to beat in October, because everybody's flawed. And from that perspective, that's why I think you can look at a team like the Padres or Milwaukee or whoever you want to pick and say, if everything breaks right and they get hot, they can run the table and win it all, whoever it is.
Yeah, it's so true, Scotty. It's so bunched up, and it has been, and it doesn't look like it's going to break apart. And like you said, every team dealing with kind of their own little flaws and disadvantages. Okay, when you look at the bottom of the wild card, right, who do you think is more for real, the Braves or the Mets?
Well, the temptation is to go Mets, but even with the Braves' injuries, with Acuna Jr. out and Spencer Strider's been out forever, I mean, they've got the one thing everybody wishes they had, a legit number one starter, Cy Young candidate, and Chris Sale, probably going to win it, I would think. So they've got that, and Alex Anthopoulos and the way they run things in Atlanta, they seem to always, surpass expectations. The Mets, if I'm not mistaken, they're hot. Obviously, you could say, well, they're the hot hand right now. They've won 8 out of 10. If I'm not mistaken, I think they've got like a run of 7 games in the next 10 against the Phillies. If it doesn't start this weekend, it's starting real soon.
Yes.
So the Mets' schedule is going to get really difficult. I haven't broken down Atlanta's, but, just historically, you look, Atlanta always kind of rises to the occasion. The Mets always sink to the occasion. So I'll say Braves.
Good point.
Scotty, other stories happening around Major League Baseball. I mentioned Otani's going for 50-50. Judge is having another year that goes into the, top 5% of baseball seasons of all time, and it's allowed him to overshadow Bobby Witt, who I think would have been an MVP in almost any other year.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think Judge keeps showing you why. You go back 2 winters ago when he was a free agent, and San Francisco took a big run at him, and of course the Padres snuck him into town when the winter meetings were in San Diego, and they took a run at him. But the year he continues to have is why it was so important for the Yankees that winter to re-sign him, because I remember talking to Aaron Boone at those winter meetings multiple times during that week, and he was just like a tiger pacing a cage, waiting for news on Aaron Judge. Is he going to return to us? And Boone texted him and was in touch, and you can see why it was so important to the Yankees, because Judge clearly is one of those generational players. And beyond that, not everybody can play and excel in New York. Not everybody's got the mental toughness, strength, whatever you want to call it. And Judge clearly did in the past and does now. And so, I mean, I think both in October and for the next few seasons, as Judge goes, so go the Yankees.
Scotty, we always appreciate your time, brother. What's the one thing you're just really going to be paying attention to this weekend as this thing continues to crank up in intensity? The National League wild card race. I think that's the one what's going to dominate October. I mean, the AL East race is interesting. The Yankees half a game lead over Baltimore. But they're both going to be in. Cleveland is going to win the Central. Houston's come from behind. They're going to win the American League West. The division races are pretty much there. And as far as the wild cards go, the American League, the Twins have been sinking. Detroit is within 3 games of the wild card, but it's kind of hard to take the American League wild card seriously because, even if Detroit makes a move, there's just some weak links that are fighting for the wild card there. Whereas in the National League, you've seen how hot I know they cool off lately, but how hot that Arizona's been since the All-Star break, how hot the Padres have been since the All-Star break. I think it goes on. And yes, speaking of which, also I'm now looking at the schedule Friday. I mentioned the Mets having a run of games against the Phillies, and Mets at Phillies Friday, beginning, the weekend. So within the National League wild card race, the Mets Phillies is going to, I think, be must see TV. And the Dodgers are in Atlanta this weekend. So, both the Mets and Braves have very interesting weekend ahead of them that ties into the most probably exciting race going right now, the National League wild card.
Scotty, get the party started tonight. Don't cause too much trouble. I want a full report in the press box. Yes, I did that for you. Full Pink report in the press box.
I appreciate that. My wife knows more Pink music than I do, but I reckon get the party started. That didn't pass me, Annie. I know that's Pink, baby.
Just helping you out is what I'm doing.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
It sounds like a great night ahead. Thank you so much, buddy. We'll chat with you before the playoffs.
Thanks, Scotty.
All right. See you guys soon. Take care.
You bet. There's Scott Miller, one of the best. It's all Pink's fault.
Yeah, I love it.
Fault.
The dog ate my homework. Well, Pink caused Scotty to be late today. And you know what? That is what it is. And maybe Pink is listening. She's probably in San Diego.
Do you think Pink is listening?
Maybe.
Closet Padre fan.
She's up, doing her sound check at Petco. Maybe they're letting this play in the background until she sings a little or something.
Kind of feel like maybe not, but I don't know. Braden told me that Aaron Rodgers is a Padres fan earlier this week, which unsettled me only slightly. I was like, wait, we agreeing? Okay. But
he might show up at a playoff game. He'll be on the big board. Actually, he's playing football, but still, he might show up. You don't know.
Yes, but is Pink a closet Padres fan too?
She might show up as well.
Is she interested in all the sports news that's fit to speak on the 12 o'clock Sports Fix? Well, let's find out. Stay tuned, Pink. We'll get you caught up so that you're not worried about that in between sets. Like, well, wait, what happened in the world of sports? We'll get it all taken care of for
We
you.
got
12,
you, Pink.
12 o'clock Sports Fix next. It's the lunch hour on Wednesday. We have reached the exact halfway point of our broadcast week. It's all downhill from here. On Annie and Elsten, your midday hang on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan, with Annie Halpern and Braden Soprenet. I'm Craig Elsten. We're here with you till 2 o'clock. Gwen and Chris check in from 2 to 5:30. At 5:40, it's our man Sammy Levitt. Eco Water SoCal Padres pregame show, 6:40. It'll be Brian Wu throwing the first pitch for Seattle against your San Diego Padres, who will throw Michael King at the Mariners. We've got all your sports news for Wednesday, September 11th, 2024, in the 12 o'clock Sports Fix now. Big news in big league baseball. Football season's here, which means there's always something going on Braden's desk. And I've been able to scrape together like one or two things because all my teams are in the offseason. But nonetheless, here we go with the 12 o'clock Sports Fix, and Annie's got the baseball.
All right, we're going to start with the Dodgers. This is for Jorge in the chat. The Dodgers reinstated Yoshinobu Yamamoto from the 60-day injured list to start yesterday's game against the Cubs. Los Angeles designated lefty reliever Nick Ramirez for assignment to create space on the active and 40-man rosters. They also activated Brusdar Graterol from the 15-day IL, but they did place Anthony Banda on the injured list with a broken left hand.
What happened to Anthony Banda?
How did he break his hand, you ask? Well, he hit against a, quote, solid object in frustration after his outing Monday and broke it.
Oopsie.
No timetable on his return. That is the one thing you do not want happening.
Solid objects remain undefeated.
Is unnecessary injuries.
Why do they just leave that anvil in the hallway between the clubhouse and the dugout for people to pound their fist against?
They do need like a punching bag.
It's the Darwin.
Yes, exactly.
The Darwin Rage Calmer.
Braves pitcher Reynaldo Lopez left Tuesday's start after just one inning with right shoulder tightness. His velocity was noticeably down during that inning. Manager Brian Snitker said they will do further testing on his shoulder. Lopez has been excellent for the Braves when healthy. The Mariners placed Luis Castillo on the 15-day injured list, retroactive to September 9th with a left hamstring strain. GM Justin Hollander told reporters yesterday that the strain is of a grade 2 variety. They also transferred reliever Yimi Garcia from the 15-day to the 60-day injured list, ending his season. Catcher Sebi Zavala was selected from the 40-man roster. Jacob deGrom makes his season debut on Friday, the Rangers announced. The two-time Cy Young winner will start that evening's game in Seattle. It will be his first Major League appearance since April 2023. deGrom underwent Tommy John surgery last June. I mean, it doesn't really matter for them, but it's probably good for him mentally to get back out and pitch before the season ends. Manny Machado made history last night, breaking the all-time franchise home run record for the San Diego Padres with 164 home runs. The previous record of 163 home runs had been set by Nate Colbert, and before last night was held since 1974. The Padres beat the Mariners 7-3 in Seattle yesterday. They will play the second and final game of this short set today. Michael King on the mound for San Diego and Brian Wu for Seattle. First pitch, 6:40 p.m.
Here's Braden with the baseball story, including games in progress.
Baseball scores from last night. Padres of the Mariners 7-3. Tigers rout the Rockies 11-0. Phillies and Rays end in a fight, but the Phillies win 9-4. Pirates and Marlins, it was the Pirates over the Fish 6-4. Braves shut out the Nationals 12-0. Royals blanked the Yankees 5-0. Hold the Yankees to just 3 hits. Seth Lugo, another great outing for the Royals. He's now 16-8 on the year for KC. Blue Jays beat the Mets north of the border 6-2. Orioles over the Red Sox 5-3. Guardians blanked the White Sox 5-0 on the south side. Twins double up the Halos 10-5 in the Twin Cities. Reds over the Cardinals 3-0. A's outlast the Astros 4-3 in 12. Diamondbacks blanked the Rangers 6-0 in a pair of 2 games out there in Texas. Giants lose to the Brewers 3-2 in the Bay. And the Cubs beat the Dodgers 6-3 at Chavez ravine.
Yes, they did. Pete Crow Armstrong robbing a homer from Max
Yeah.
Muncy for out number 27. That was all right.
Big catch there.
was
Games
okay.
today. Pirates over the Marlins 3-1. Top half of the ninth inning. Marlins are down to their final out, but they have the tying run on first base. Guardians are beating the White Sox by the same score they beat them last night, 5-0. Bottom half of the third. Mets and Blue Jays about to get underway in Toronto. Sean Manaea for the Mets going against Bowden Francis of the Toronto Blue Jays.
He's actually been pretty good.
8-4, the 3.72 ERA.
Good old Bowden.
Good old Bowden. And Bowden we trust tonight.
Bodine, a place that you eat.
The
It's Francis.
place from San Francisco that's
Oh,
about
that's what I'm
sourdough bread.
thinking of. Yes,
Bodine.
thank you.
See it at malls and stuff?
Yes,
Yes.
Isn't
the
that
original sourdough?
Boudin?
probably.
Like Boudin. Like
Something.
French. Boudin.
I thought it was pronounced Bodine, but
I think it's Boudin. But someone
could
tell us in the
very
chat.
well
Someone will
be
know.
right.
Someone will know. You have football coming up. But
I do.
first, a very short story. The U.S. men's national team played New Zealand in Cincinnati last night. And before the match, the big story was that it was official. The hiring of Mauricio Pochettino to become the club's new manager going into the 2026 World Cup. That meant for Mikey Varas, who is rumored to be San Diego FC's first head coach, this would be his last game as the interim headman on the sidelines. It was scoreless in the first half. Varas subbed in Christian Pulisic. Seems like a good idea. Pulisic scored a goal in the 69th minute, took a 1-0 lead. Then New Zealand scored on a pinball play in stoppage time. 1-1 was the final score. Certainly a disappointing result for the U.S. men's national team. Keep in mind, anybody who was on the New Zealand national team was just basically too small to play rugby. And that's how they sort who makes the national soccer team
Wow.
in New Zealand. Tough scene.
Yes.
Nonetheless, the U.S. men's national team winless streak is up to 4 matches. The LA Lakers announced yesterday they will honor former player, coach, and executive Jerry West all season long by wearing a black band on their jerseys. The band, which has the number 44, Jerry West's number, will be over the left shoulder of the jersey of the Lakers players and right above their Babigo sponsor logo. Big game in the WNBA tonight. Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever host the defending champion Las Vegas Aces. If you want to watch that one, game tips at 4 o'clock on NBA TV. Golf will return to the world with the Solheim Cup on Friday. That is the equivalent of the Ryder Cup, but for the women's game be held in the United States. Europe has won the last 4 Solheim Cups, so the U.S. trying to get that thing back. We'll have more on that as we approach the weekend, but first, back to Braden for the latest football news.
it's supposed to be Buddha in French, but Boudin would like to be considered. They like to be Boudin.
Really?
The
Yes.
Americanized version.
That's how they would like to be
Boudin.
said. So that was the
And they're San Francisco, but it still sounds almost Southern. Boudin.
right. What they like to be is Boudin. They
Kathy
must have,
Ray, go get the Boudin.
It's the French immigrant that came over whose last name was Buddha, changed it to make it American, and the company wants to be known as Boudin.
Thank you for getting to the bottom of this.
You're welcome.
more
Now I
you
want some
know.
sourdough bread.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
Starting college athletics, this is always fun. Auburn senior quarterback Peyton Thorne on Tuesday said criticism after losses such as Saturday's defeat to California has included requests for money from bettors. Thorne, appearing on the next round, said bettors have messaged him on Venmo asking for money. Quote, they're definitely not sending cash, Thorne, who had 4 passes intercepted in the 21-14 loss to Cal on Saturday, with a chuckle. It's funny, when they lose money, they want their money back. But when they win money on a parlay, no one's ever sent me any of their money. Thorne made light of the requests for money during his appearance, but the issue is something that the NCAA is monitoring and trying to combat. Results from a study by Signify, an artificial intelligence company and NCAA partner, found that 1 in 3 high-profile college athletes receive messages from individuals with a, quote, betting interest. At the request of the NCAA, Maryland, Louisiana, Ohio, and Vermont are among the states that have banned sportsbooks from offering prop bets on college players. Professional athletes also have their similar experiences. PGA golfer Max Homa said bettors tracked down his Venmo account and requested money from him multiple times per week. Quote, "That gets old," Homa said to the Washington Post. Something that we're going to have to deal with in this day and age of legalized sports betting.
Interesting.
Feel bad for the college. I mean, just be inundated by degenerate gamblers.
Yeah.
Like it's your fault. But
Yeah.
you know what? These are some of the consequences of legalizing sports gambling.
That is correct. You put a casino in a person's pocket in 30 states, and athletes get Venmo requests because the dude bet on you.
Yeah.
People are realizing why vices are vices as they're all being legalized. Food for thought. Baltimore Ravens linebacker Kyle Van Noy ripped the Kansas City Chiefs medical staff for a lack of urgency after he sustained an eye injury in Thursday's season opener, calling it, quote, "unacceptable and unprofessional. I was disappointed in the way the training staff of the Chiefs handled the situation," Van Noy said on his podcast Tuesday. "I was supposed to see an ophthalmologist." Correct?
Yeah.
Eye
Ophthalmologist.
doctor?
Eyes.
Eye doctor. And they took an entire quarter to get down to talk to me in the locker room, which to me is unacceptable. Chiefs had no comment on Van Noy's remarks. Van Noy suffered a fractured orbital bone in the third quarter while rushing Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes. The injury occurred when his helmet went under his chin strap while he was at the bottom of a pile that included Mahomes and Baltimore defensive tackle Niamde Matabuki.
Well done.
Ravens ruled out Van Noy about 40 minutes after he left the game with an eye injury. Van Noy described the injury as a pretty good fracture, but he's upset with the Chiefs' medical staff.
Well,
Any
I can
thoughts on
understand
that?
that.
Yeah, it's kind of rough.
Yeah. Not really.
Dolphins running back Raheem Mostert will not play in Thursday night's game against the Buffalo Bills, according to Coach Mike McDaniel on Wednesday, leaving the team without its leading rusher from a season ago. Mostert was estimated to have missed all of the Dolphins' practices this week with a chest injury. The team didn't practice Monday and held walkthrough practices Tuesday and Wednesday. Running back Devon Achane also missed Monday's and Tuesday's practice with an ankle injury, but returned to the practice field Wednesday. In terms of Achane's availability for Thursday's game, Mike McDaniel said, "We'll see." Achane was officially listed as questionable for the game by the Dolphins. He was limited participant in Wednesday's practice, according to the team. Quick week this week, obviously playing on a Thursday.
Yeah.
NFL sets week 1 ratings record. Averages 21 million viewers per game. NFL averaged 21 million viewers per game during the league's opening week, making it the most watched week 1 on record. The league and Nielsen said Wednesday morning that the per game average on TV and digital platforms was a 12% increase over last year. Nielsen began electronic measurement of viewing in 1988. All told, 123 million people saw at least part of one game, its highest total for an opening week since 2019. A great start with viewership. It was great to be back and a lot to be excited about, said Hans Schroeder, the executive vice president of NFL Media. NBC had the most watched game with the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs' 27-20 victory of the Baltimore Ravens in Thursday's opener, averaging 29.2 million on TV and digital. It was NBC's second largest regular season game since 2006 when it acquired Sunday Night Football's package. The Sunday night game between the Lions and the Rams, which Detroit won 26-20 in overtime, averaged 22.7 million, a 3% jump from last year. Tom Brady's first game on Fox, Cowboys 33-17 win over the Browns, averaged 23.93 million. The 6 games that were part of Fox doubleheader, 4 early, 2 late, averaged 18.64 million, making it the network's best start since 2020. So numbers are up for the National Football League. And that's it for the college and NFL football report.
In that NFL, oh, sorry, did you have more?
No.
Oh, in the NFL, in the ophthalmologist story, it's interesting because the Chiefs are rated, their training staff is rated with an F. You know how they do those grades every year by players?
Yeah.
And even the players, everybody rated their training staff an F, but it's like, and so that's what he's saying is like, because it's the visiting side that's supposed to come, the home side that's supposed to come check on a visiting player. He's saying they waited too long, and what if he had gone back in the game and all that. But for a team that's won that many championships and is building a dynasty, I don't understand how that continues to happen, right? Where your medical staff is not really top tier.
Saving money on the medical staff to
I don't
pay for the
know.
players.
I mean, you have all these investments, and maybe it's just for the opposing side, but because you don't know who votes on the Players Association poll necessarily, but not a good look for them for sure.
No, definitely not.
And, good news for the ratings. When I hear that, I kind of draw a line between several of your stories. I mean, gambling up, the association between the NFL and gambling up, 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 ratings up.
Yeah.
You have more incentive for people to watch.
Right.
That are not fans of like a team, like with fantasy football and the betting. And I mean, you're just adding more and more. I mean, there's a lot of people that probably don't want to go through the, relatively the grind of fantasy football. They just want to have action on the game. And now all of a sudden they're watching.
Yeah. But isn't it amazing when you really, really think about it? Fantasy football, correct me if I'm wrong, Braden, not an invention of the National Football League.
No, somebody else came up with it.
Right, invented outside of fantasy of the National Football League. Mm-hmm. But what single thing has propelled the NFL more? Now, I just talked about actual gambling, betting on the games. That's always taken place to some level. There's always been sports books. There's always been Vegas. There's always been Atlantic City. There's always been Mexico. But now it's ubiquitous. But before that, fantasy football, there's so many people who would never bet $20 on a Lions game, but they will spend $400 in fantasy football fees to be a part of 3 or 4 different leagues. Some people do it at a much smaller scale. Some people do it at a much larger scale. But the nature of fantasy sports, football is the best one. Why? Because for 6 hours on Sunday, it just goes, right? It's just concentrated, nonstop data, nonstop stimulation, nonstop. Oh, I'm up, I'm down. He scored. That guy scored. Oh no, that guy's hurt. This guy. Why didn't you throw to my guy? He was open on third down. You threw to the other guy. It creates this entirely different thing that really has very little to do with the game itself. Football has always been a telegenic sport. It'll always be a telegenic sport, but isn't it just I find it funny. I'm not really offering a criticism. I find it funny that because fantasy is just so much better for football because it's just the nature of the way the game is played compared to baseball every day. NBA, you might have, your team might play twice, they might play once, they might play 4 times, blah, blah, blah. But it's everyone plays, except for the bye week. Everyone plays. It's all happening, all kind of in the same period of time, same time window. Set your lineups, that it's created an industry amongst itself and has created this balloon that's going to continue to lift the NFL up.
Yeah, I mean it's a huge entity upon itself, and the whole tie-ins to the gambling sites with fantasy football. I mean, just the other day, the story of Christian McCaffrey not playing with the 49ers. Well, after the game, I forget the running back's name that did really well.
Mason
was asked, when did you find out you're going to be starting? And he said on Friday, and there was a controversy over should that have been disclosed earlier because people couldn't set their fantasy football lineups, and now is the NFL going to take heat? And it sounds so ludicrous. To me, it sounds so but it's not, because of all the money and nothing is ludicrous when it comes to all that money. So, how things are certainly affected by fantasy football in ways that you'd be like, wait a second, what? But then you remember, this is all just entertainment to them. This is all just making money off of these games and these industries. So
that's really kept the NFL alive in terms of being the number one. I mean, there's a lot of things that make the NFL the best, the number one sport in the United States.
Right.
You have the carnage factor. You have the, the tradition, or like how long it's been going on for. But fantasy football is a big reason why that sport is succeeding. That's why I always find it funny when like players go like, I don't care about your fantasy team. The reality is, buddy, if it wasn't for fantasy football, you wouldn't be making the gobs of money you're making right now, because it's such a popular sport because of fantasy football. Now, that being said, don't ever direct message any athlete for your fantasy football team. Same thing with don't ask a Venmo request if you made the bet. But at the same time, it's like, and some guys get it. Like Austin Eckler gets it, right? I mean, and Maurice Jones-Drew back in the day understood it. He had his own league while he was playing, which is kind of controversial. But fantasy football is a big reason why the NFL is making so much money. Think about all the rules that they change.
Yeah.
player safety, more like let's try to get as many points as possible for these fantasy teams with extra yards and offenses. I mean, there's no player safety rules that protect the defensive players because nobody's got defensive players in fantasy football either.
I'll say one more thing. There's no fan base overall that's more pro-owner, anti-community than the NFL. Hey, give billions to the billionaires. Take away my downtown for a stadium. But I truly think that part of that, why are NFL fans so much more pro-owner than NBA fans or MLB fans or NHL fans? Because you, too, the fan, trade the players as commodities. Within your individual fantasy leagues, they become commodities to you. Just like it's an ownership mentality. Well, I own that guy too because I drafted Raheem Mostert, so now I'm mad he's not playing on Thursday, or I didn't find out in time to set my lineup. Now I'm mad, but I'm trading Joe Burrow, I'm trading Tagovailoa, and it creates that mentality. Oh, why isn't it the same for baseball? Because it's so much more popular and ever present in the NFL than it is anywhere else.
And the NFL just does a better job marketing. The NFL does a better job with just how they put their product out. I mean, it's really, even if you hate the NFL, it's hard to ignore that. They whether it's good, I would say good, it's all good to them, but whether it's palatable to you or not, or it should be palatable to you or not, they're very good at what they do. Just talking yesterday about, Commissioner Rob Manfred for baseball, speaking at an event the other night for CNBC, and one of their reporters saying that baseball needs a national media rights strategy if it's going to expand and needs to move away from regional sports networks. And all the comments underneath were like, you're pretty late to the game here, and it does feel like with baseball a lot. I mean, it's kind of a running joke on our show, at least, is that they're a little bit behind with things.
We're behind the times,
right?
For sure.
Where at least where football kind of sets the precedent in a lot of ways.
Football is the best sport designed for television, which is the main thing.
100%.
Anyway. With the breaks, all the breaks that are already built in.
Yep.
Right. Once a week, like this big hype before every single game. I mean, you have the build up to every single game.
The storylines.
Like if the Padres season was way shorter, and it was like this big week build up to a game, and every game, like Craig said earlier in the show about the amplification of all of these games if the season was shorter like the NFL. I mean, we'd be going all in and doing a full breakdown of this Mariners series if it was like they only played on the weekends.
Right.
It would be such a huge buildup. It would be like, what do we got to do this week? How's practice going for the Padres? And
you talk all offense one day, you talk all defense the next day.
You'd be dialed in on the Mariners, and then it would be you'd be feeling the same thing every Monday. They win a series, everything's great. They lose a series, and you're just like, damn, just in the dumps for 2 or 3 days. But that's what makes it so exciting in the NFL too, and that's strictly because that's a brutal sport. You can't play that every single day like you can with all the other ones. So football's got a lot of advantages, but I feel like they're the first league to really embrace the fact that we're not here to be a sports league. We're here to be a business, and we're an entertainment business.
Yeah, right. And we're a commoditization business as well. And again, that just draws back to that same point. Like, yeah, every week, but we also care about Minnesota's quarterback. We also care about Atlanta's receiver. Why?
Pay attention to all that.
Why? Because we are picking them up, dropping them, trading them, starting them, benching them. We are cosplaying as deciders in the sport each week. And we have our own little subset of decisions within the sport each week, as opposed to just being like, well, I care about my team, but I don't care what the Milwaukee Brewers are doing, or I don't care what the White Sox, who's hitting third for the White Sox today. But you absolutely care who's the running back one for the Carolina Panthers, because that might be the guy that you need to stream to win this week's game.
Don't you play fantasy baseball?
I do.
There are some people that play fantasy baseball, right?
They do.
It's just nowhere near what
nothing
fantasy
like
football is, right?
It's not even within 100 yards to keep the football analogy.
You got like a week of games for like a one week matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whereas the NFL, it's like it's all done in one day.
That's it.
Everybody's playing.
And everyone's got their story then. Like Sammy had his story. I went to bed Monday night. I was 100% to win. I woke up in the morning. I lost. woe is me. We've all got our various stories. Everyone's got their gambling stories. Like, it's all part of the machine that creates the NFL as the ultimate sports entertainment product. There's no doubt about it. Let's take a timeout. When we come back, some of the baseball stories that we haven't gotten to yet. Anthony Rendon is done again. And you know what might not be done? Oh, I hate to bring it up. I hate to bring it up even on our airwaves. The NL Rookie of the Year might not be done either.
Is Churio on the move?
And Pirates didn't exactly shut down Paul Skeens the way that we all hoped that they would.
I stopped paying a little bit of attention, so
well,
I bet a lot of people did. Yeah.
I'm going to bring that attention back to you
Paul
right after
Skeens.
this. It's Andy and Elsten on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
12:31 on a Wednesday here on 97.3 The Fan, the Annie and Elsten Show. I'm Annie Heilbrin, joined by Craig Elsten and Braden Soprenin as we roll along here, taking you until 2 p.m. when the reins will be turned over to Gwyn and Chris and Matt Scraby, of course, and then right up to Sammy Levitt's pregame show. That's at 5:40 today, and the game with the Padres and the Mariners, game 2 of their 2-game set at 6:40 p.m. tonight. So a lot to look forward to for today as we roll along on a Wednesday. Braden, what is the rest of your day hold? What's the football plan?
Football practice. A lot of football practice. JV's got practice at like 3 o'clock, and then varsity's doing a night practice. But the JV practice will be a walkthrough, which means that's going to be done pretty quickly, which means I'm going to be at Cathedral all day today. And then after Cathedral, I have softball.
Boo.
At like 9 o'clock. So.
Oh, you're going all
That's
year.
wild, dude. I always hear about you guys with these late night softball games.
Latest game we could play is 10. I do not like the 10 o'clock games. I'd rather play a 10 o'clock game than the 6 o'clock game. 6 o'clock games suck.
I mean, when you play a 10 o'clock game, and I assume the game takes an hour.
Yeah, roughly.
So now it's 11.
Yeah, I'm not getting home to like 11:30-ish.
And you've just played a game.
Right, so you're all like, jacked up, if you will.
So you like probably 1 o'clock before you can even possibly fall asleep.
I'm definitely dragging on. The good thing on Thursdays is I could show up and let you guys do the round table and mac on some pizza to get myself awake after a 10 o'clock game. Tonight our game's at 9. They're better in the summertime, like right now, than they are in the wintertime. I mean, January, as soon as it gets to like 8 o'clock, I mean, the 8 o'clock games feel like 10 o'clock games. You play at 9 and 10, it's just miserable because it's so cold.
Thank you. I had to step out for a second. We got match game coming up. I just saw Klugers. He's ready to go. On the Red Greg has been informed. So we should be all set with a voluminous match game coming up shortly. But first, a couple of quick notes. Anthony Rendon of the LA Angels of Anaheim has gone on the disabled list again. I don't even need to tell you why. I mean, he's on the disabled list every single year for most of the year, and his season is over. Did you even know Anthony Rendon was playing baseball this season?
I really didn't. How many years is how many years is on his contract?
He is paid through 2026. And in fact, he gets a raise next year. Get this. Anthony Rendon signed after the 2019 World Series, right? Was a critical part of the World Series team for the Washington Nationals, and for a period of the late 2010s was in the argument for best third baseman in baseball, right there with Manny, with a couple other guys for the argument for best third baseman in baseball. And then the Nationals let him go, let him walk in free agency off the championship. He signs with the Angels in 2020 and a 7-year contract that'll pay him through 2026. 2026, his age 36 season. He gets paid $36.5 million this year. Next year, it goes up to $38.5 million, and it'll stay there for the next 4 years, during which you can count on Anthony Rendon to show up to every spring training, to play about 7 to 10 spring training games, to declare himself injured, miss most of the rest of the regular season, come back for some basically union-demanded amount of time so that he can be acting in good faith on his deal, and he's just going to collect these paychecks, and he's going to leave the Angels in a complete lurch. The guy hit 0 homers this year in 206 at-bats, 57 games, and guess what? Since he came to the Angels, this is amazing. Since he came to the Angels, in 2020, the man played 52 out of 60 games. Okay. All right. In 2021, he played 58 out of 162. In 2022, 47 out of 162. In 2023, 43 out of 162. And this year, he made it up to 57. Is this the worst free agent contract ever?
I mean, it's probably up there. I don't know Anthony Rendon, and I've seen players defend him. I don't know what is going on with him. Like he could be trying to stay healthy, and he's just not able to stay healthy for whatever reason. But I read a story on him recently where he talked about how he has been trying to stay healthy and been doing all kinds of work in the offseason and during the season to better his nutrition, his better his rehabs, do a better job of finding out what's going on, and whether or not that's a fake or not, I don't know. And so he could be working it to figure this out, and it's just he's having a tough time with it, and maybe not, but I'm sure when it's all said and done, years pass, maybe some teammates will talk a little bit about this, but you just never know what a player's going through, really.
That's true, and that's fair. And I think it's also fair then to bring up in February of this year when he said of baseball, quote, "This has never been a top priority. This is a job. I do this to make a living. My faith and my family come first before this job. So if those things come before it, I'll move on."
Maybe it will be time for him to move on. I always feel like when a player speaks honestly about something, while he probably saying it's not one of my top priorities, is probably, you would have wished for it to be somewhat in the top. But I have spoken to many players who talk about how you have to have a healthy detachment sometimes from this game because it will eat you alive. And you have to be able to put your priorities into something that's going to love you after your career ends. Whether that's your faith, your family, something else, you have to be able to balance that. Now, has he done everything he can? I have no idea. I don't know the guy, and really only he knows that. But certainly there are players around the majors that would agree with him that the season needs to be shorter and that you sometimes need to be able to separate yourself a little bit from the game. But sure, I mean, those comments are a little grating to hear.
Well, and just continuing down that particular story, he identified in February his biggest goal as to be staying on the field. And he said he tweaked his routines to help him stay on the field. Mm-hmm. And he completely and totally failed. He completely and totally failed in that result. Now, was it his fault? Is he just does he happen to be somebody who was an incredibly elite athlete at 29, and the day he turned 30, he became just a broken version of himself, and physical malady will completely ruin him, and he's working with an absolute pure intent? We are on the radio, so it's fair for us to offer him that olive branch of maybe. But on the surface, this is a guy who has basically helped torpedo a franchise by taking their money and not playing. And when he plays, playing horribly. And you know whose fault is that? Not Anthony Rendon's. It's Artie Moreno's fault. It's Angels front office. It was whoever gave him that deal in 2020. That wasn't Perry Minasian, and he wasn't there yet. Whoever preceded him and gave him that deal, it's their fault that they gave him $275 million of guaranteed money to not play baseball for the next 7 years for the LA Angels. But point of fact, that's what they're stuck with. I don't know. I just saw Adam in the hallway before, and he was like, they should just cut him. And
yeah,
I actually think they absolutely should.
You're paying him
just
anyway.
Yeah.
Might as well just pay him to go away.
Exactly.
His attitude's been subpar since he became an Angel. And the way he treats the media and the way he goes about his business. I don't know what's going on in his own life. Obviously, we never know that. But his attitude's been rough.
Well,
and you
I
can see
agree.
the reports from a lot of local Angels reporters that just can't stand dealing with him.
And I agree. Last thing, I just want to do this briefly because I want to give Match Game enough time. We torched our game show segment yesterday. But Paul Skeens, last time out, 6 shutout innings, 9 strikeouts. He has 10 wins. He has an ERA of 2.1 for the season. And we thought that the big part of why Jackson Merrill, who is still statistically and on the betting markets a slight betting favorite to win the National League Rookie of the Year, we thought the reason that this would become a slam dunk is because the Pirates would shut down Skeens. They haven't shut down Skeens. He's still out there. He's pitching. He's pitching great. And if he finishes with an ERA under 2, he's going to wind up winning the Rookie of the Year. And it won't be Jackson Merrill, and it won't be Jackson Churio. And I hope it's Jackson Merrill, and it behooves the Padres. It's such a big advantage to get it. So just like we track the wild card race for you every day, I just wanted to throw that in people's minds. Like, Skeens is still out there. He's still pitching, and he's still pitching great. And there's going to be plenty of people that are going to want to vote for him if he gets to the end of the year doing what he's doing.
Yeah, it's going to be a good race. I think that you're still going to have some voters for sure going for Paul Skeens and maybe the majority like that. And I think Jackson Churio has gotten his name into the race, as we talked about yesterday. The thing about it is that to me, it's like you can't look at Jackson Merrill and say the guy hasn't done everything he can to deserve this.
Right.
The same way they look at Paul Skeens, the same way they look at Jackson Churio. So, it's three rookies having a really, really, really good year. And it's going to be up to the voters.
Let's take a time out. When we come back, it's time for today's silly game. And it's the one where we always have the most fun all week. It's time to play the match game. This is where we're going to assemble our all-star celebrity panel, and it'll be your turn to get ready to match the stars. And that means we need 2 contestants. This is the only game that's played all month long on the airwaves. I believe this is correct because Chris versus the Fans doesn't always have a winner, right?
Correct.
This is the only game that's played all month long on 97.3 The Fan.
Guaranteed
winner. Someone will win. Someone will be qualified for our end of the month grand prize drawing, which is a 2-night stay at your choice of either Wynn or Encore Las Vegas, and 2 tickets to see Awakening, the thrilling spectacle filled with soaring, aerialist, bounding acrobats, high-energy choreography, and comedic moments. Tickets on sale at awakening.com. So we open up the phone lines right now, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. We need 2 contestants to play the match game when we come back on 97.3 The Fan. All right, let's get to it. It is 12:48. We have got a packed studio. It's time for silly games. And today, it's time to play the match game. Boom, ba-doom, boom, boom. There it is. Get ready to match the stars. Annie Heilbrunn.
Hello.
Adam Klug.
Hey, everybody.
On the reg, Greg.
Go Birds.
Braden Soprenant.
What's up?
I'm your host, Gene Rayburn, and it's time for Match Game 97.3, the game where you get to answer silly questions to win a great prize. Your chance to be put into our end-of-the-month drawing for a two-night stay at either Wynn or Encore Las Vegas. 2 tickets to see Awakening, the thrilling spectacle at Wynn Las Vegas. Tickets on sale at awakening.com. We have 2 contestants on the line getting ready to play the match game. Contestant number 1 today is Hector in San Diego. Hello, Hector. Welcome to the show.
Hello, do you hear me?
I can hear you now. How are you?
Good, how about yourself?
Good, Hector. You're contestant 1 on Match Game. Tell us a little bit about yourself before we play.
I was born and raised in San Diego, diehard Padres fan, and I'm just nervous, first-time player.
First-time player. That's a different show, but still, nonetheless. Awesome, Hector. No problem. You are going to go today against Mr. Wolf. Look out. It's Wolf in San Diego. What's up, Wolf? Wolf?
Oh, we didn't lose Wolf.
We lost Wolf.
Ran into the pack.
Sal in Carlsbad. It might be your lucky day. Sal, what's going on?
Well, Sal. You there, Sal?
How's it going?
Good, Sal. You're contestant number 2 on the Match Game today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a longtime listener, called a few times. I love the Padres and love San Diego and love trivia.
Okay. All right. Well, unfortunately, today you called in to play the match game, which is not exactly trivia. It is more of your ability to deduce the comedic stylings of the panel. This is how the game will work. Yes, it's always fun. This is how the game will work, gentlemen. Hector is contestant 1. Sal is contestant 2. We play this in 2 rounds where you each get a question apiece. When I give you your question, you will silently listen as I read the prompt to the panel, and they will write down their best answer. Then I will come back to you, read you the prompt again, and get your answer. If your answer matches any one of theirs, you get a point. At the end of 2 rounds, whoever has the most points will be in the hopper as our qualifier for today's game. If that all makes sense, Hector, you are contestant number 1, which means in the first round, you get the choice. Would you like question A or would you like question B?
Let's go with question A.
Question A it is. All right, Hector, I'm just going to put you on hold so that you don't accidentally blurt out your answer. Panelists, lock in. It's a Wednesday. It's after lunch. Let's get locked in. Here we go.
Disclaimer.
First, the disclaimer. All contestants, all of the characters that you hear within our match game questions are 100% and entirely fictitious and bear no resemblance to anybody living or dead. Any such resemblance is entirely coincidental. Couldn't possibly be real. It's coincidence. Okay, now, here we go. Hot Dog Joey's wife said, "I'm worried Joey's taking his work home with him. Last night in his sleep, he ate the blank." Hot Dog Joey's wife said, "I'm worried Joey has taken his work home with him. Last night in his sleep, he ate the blank." Panelists will let me know verbally when they have finished writing down their
Gotta
answers.
just say, there are few things as pleasing as using a really fine, new dry erase marker.
It's so beautiful and clear and dark. Does that mean you have your answer?
Oh, I do.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes? Braden?
Yep.
Yes, okay. All right, everyone's got their answers. So, Hector, now I come back to you. Hot Dog Joey's wife said, "I'm worried Joey is taking his work home with him. Last night in his sleep, he ate the..."
It's either between pillow or blanket, so I'm going to say blanket.
He ate the blanket.
Pillow.
He said pillow. All right,
Pillow, is
fine,
it sure? Is
fine.
that final?
He said pillow. That's
Pillow,
fine.
your final answer.
pillow.
All right.
Pillow it is, Hector. All right. Let's go to our panel now. Annie Halbrand.
I said sheets.
Oh, that would have been a match.
It's okay. It's okay. I got you with
Yes.
pillow.
Oh,
got you.
Adam's got the pillow. That's a match.
That's right.
All right, Greg.
I went with he ate the buns, hun.
Wait, you spelled that correctly.
Yes, I got that one right.
Pause. And here's Braden.
I said he ate the dog.
Oh, he ate the dog. That's a cold dog, and that's a cold day. But Hector, you got one match. That's pretty good for round one. Stay right there.
I almost put buns though. That would have been fun.
All right,
Buns
good.
is funny.
Glad I wasn't completely out.
Blanket, pillow, you could eat any part of the bed or go the other direction. I like it. I like it. Okay, this is question B. Sal, this is your question, so listen up. Panelists, lock in. This is building on a motif from previous questions in previous shows past. Manager Mike had a roller coaster, then a rocket ship. Now he wants to ride that blank all the way to the playoffs.
Well, I know what I'm going to say.
Manager Mike had a roller coaster, then a rocket ship. Now he wants to ride that blank all the way to the playoffs.
Done.
Braden's done. Annie knew her answer immediately. She's done. Adam thinking.
Done.
Greg's done. Adam has something, but he's not sure if he likes it.
That's how I feel about most of mine. So.
Okay, Sal, back to you, my friend. It's your turn. Manager Mike had a roller coaster, then a rocket ship. Now he wants to ride that blank all the way to the playoffs.
That's a funny one. So let's see. I think you want to ride that ship. You want to ride that ship all the way.
All
All
right.
the way. You want to ride that ship.
Ride that ship. Now, this is one of those ones that if you're a tier one, it probably maybe helped you on these answers. Let's see what Annie Halbrand had to say.
I said magic carpet.
Ride that magic carpet.
I say that on
Absolutely.
this show.
You say it all the time on this show. Adam,
Machado.
ride that Machado. Ride
I
that
said
Manny Man.
ride that wave.
Ride that wave. All right.
Adam Scott Suarez.
Adam
Scott
Scott Suarez
Suarez.
is the answer I was looking for.
I didn't specifically. I
chat got it.
wrote the acronym
Yeah.
instead.
Ride that. You know.
It's in the Bible.
Okay, so it's 1-0, but that's fine. Sal, don't worry about it. Second round always has questions that are easier to match. And Sal, because you are contestant B, or contestant 2, I should say, you get the choice in round 2. Would you like question A, or would you like question B?
I'll take question A.
Question A it is. All right, I'll put you back on hold. Sal, panelists, here we go. Round 2, question A. Lock in. Mashing Manny isn't just great at mashing homers. He's also a whiz at mashing blank. Mashing Manny isn't just great at mashing homers. He's also a whiz at mashing blank. Panelists will let me know when they're done.
Got it.
Got it.
Got it.
I don't have one.
Braden's out. He's still
stumped.
thinking. He's still
Mashing.
thinking.
I don't know. Something lame. All right, I'll figure it out.
Like you're at a restaurant. Come back to me. Come back.
Yeah, come back to me. Let them order first.
Oh, gosh. Here's Sal. Sal, mashing Manny isn't just great at mashing homers. He's also a whiz at mashing
Avocados.
avocados. Very
Good
Very
one.
very show relevant.
That's a good one. I
I
wish I
like
would have
that.
had that one, but I had potatoes.
Potatoes.
Like
No
just
match.
mashed potatoes.
I paid homage to Annie.
Yeah.
Planet.
Mashing planet.
It's just
the best I
mashing
could come up
planets. Just planets.
It's the name of your new band.
Potatoes.
Potatoes. Uh-oh. All of a sudden we need an avocado.
I put potatoes too.
Potatoes. Potatoes was
Avocado,
the
buddy.
answer.
Potatoes.
And what that means is that Hector is our winner.
Yay.
today.
We don't even have to play next round, huh?
Yeah, I mean, 1-0.
Didn't have to do the bottom of the second.
Great job, guys.
Yeah, every once in a while the home team wins, and then you just don't even play the bottom of the inning.
I
So
guess records would have worked.
yeah, that's true
right.
too. Hector, stay right there, buddy. Braden will take your information down during the break. First time player, first time winner. Hope you wind up being the first time getting your name drawn at the end of the month as well. Congratulations. okay. And he said, thanks. I'm very appreciative of the opportunity. Greg, thank you.
No, thank you.
Adam, appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
Braden and Annie, stay right there. We're going to keep doing the show together. We're going to come right back after this break.
You mean I can't switch
No
with
thanks
Greg?
to us, yeah.
I mean, you
I'm
can
going
try.
on. I'm going on K-Son. Greg's gonna stay here.
Deal.
Cool.
Done. You heard it here first.
Guess we're talking Phillies next then.
There
All
you
right.
go, baby.
Okay, hour number 4 of the program underway, starting just a tad late because, as usual, Match Game has a tendency to tumble over the deadline. Nonetheless, fun game. Congrats to our man Hector, first-time winner. Hopefully he is in Vegas a couple months from now, enjoying it and saying, hey, Annie and Elsten, thank you so much. Glad I gave them a ring. We're here till 2. Gwen and Chris, they're in the building. Well, Chris is. Gwen's in the building, but by that we mean T-Mobile Park in Seattle. They will be on from 2 to 5:30. Scraby alongside, of course. Then it'll be Sam Levitt, Eco Water SoCal Padres pregame show, 5:40 to 6:30. At 6:40, it'll be Jesse and Tony with the call as the Padres try to finish off 2 games in Seattle with 2 wins, even up the season series against the Mariners, ostensibly tie the Vetter Cup for 2024, but more importantly, take another giant stride toward the playoffs. That's what they took yesterday, Annie. They took a big stride toward the playoffs, beating Seattle 7-3.
Yeah, and as you said earlier in the show, I mean, as the number of games just continues to tick down and they continue to win, I mean, again, the Padres, regardless of whatever any other team does, they're in a good position.
That position strengthened when the Mets lost yesterday, meaning that they've got now a 2.5 game lead over the cut line over 2 different teams. The Diamondbacks kept winning, so half game behind us. Arizona, it does feel, unless something weird happens, it feels like it's going to the last weekend between those 2 teams, and it could be, if everything shakes the same, for who hosts one another 2 days later to play a playoff series, best 2 out of 3. All of that remains on the table. Everything remains on the table. But the Padres, by winning, ripped another day off the calendar in a good way. Manny Machado, obviously the offensive hero yesterday. The key story that he hit his 164th homer as a Padre. He is now the Padres team all-time leader in home runs. But I thought just as important was that Fernando Tatis Jr. turned a 2-0 deficit into a 3-2 lead in his second at-bat, bombing a 3-run homer, and then immediately followed that up by making an incredible throw in right field to nail Polanco, trying to stretch a single into a double, and Tatis showing you why he remains one of the elite athletes and impact players in this sport.
Absolutely. I mean, he hit an opposite field home run, and that's a ballpark where the ball doesn't usually fly like that. So showing you a little bit of the power that Fernando has and that he's going to continue to most likely get as he gets healthier and feels better. Said after the game yesterday that right now having a day off kind of, and you can understand this, right? Almost maybe, he prefers playing a few days in a row because his body sort of acclimates to it, right? And maybe with the day off, it's sort of, he doesn't have that feel quite back yet. So it was good to hear him say that because that means that he's starting to feel better. You know, he's starting to feel more like himself out there, and you see that building with every game that he plays. And the goal here is that he's feeling really comfortable, just like Yu Darvish is, by the end of September when this team is heading into the postseason. And that's another big reason too why they moved Xander Bogaerts to shortstop. Like the thought there is you want him to feel good playing that position again. So when you're playing in the postseason, it's not like you did it the last week of the regular season and now he's got to move over. He can get acclimated back there as well, and so can Jake Cronenworth over there at second and whoever's playing first. So you see a lot of things kind of clicking into place here.
Games continue, including day games today, in which I have a mixed bag to report, Annie. Would you prefer good or bad first?
Let's start with the bad and we'll end with the good.
The Diamondbacks already lead the Rangers 5-0 in the second inning.
The Diamondbacks lead the Rangers 5-0 in the second inning. Okay, early game still.
Yeah, but 2 in the first, 3 in the second.
Yeah.
It's a lot of runs.
It's also the Rangers, like they're not in the mix for anything.
No.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so that's bad news. Arizona they haven't even made 4 outs in the game, and they're already well on their way to victory against Texas. The better news is that they're in the top of the 5th inning in Toronto at Rogers Center, and the Blue Jays lead the Mets 1-0, and Bowden Francis has yet to allow a hit to the New York Mets. So from the Diamondback standpoint, it's about seeding. From the Mets standpoint, it's about making the playoffs.
The Mets can't afford. You lose again, your 3rd game in a row. I mean, it's not impossible. They're not mathematically eliminated, but it can be morally, when you're trying to mentally, I should say, mentally difficult when you feel so much pressure with every game, and then you fall behind 3 games, and now you feel like you've got to do more, and sometimes that backfires against you. So it's not the most, the greatest position to be in for them. They don't play the Phillies next, right? Or is it them that plays the Phillies next?
Hang on, let me go double check.
I
I haven't memorized
if you're
the
gonna
road
lose
for October.
the
Mets, yes, this weekend they play at Philadelphia. Yes.
You can't afford to lose today to the Blue Jays. It's and then you go play the Phillies. Like that's a tough sled.
Yeah, the Diamondbacks are happy because they get to post their number first. So they put a win up today, and then the Padres are in their batting practice, seeing that number up and going, okay, we got to win, or else we fall behind them and we fall into 5th place. But this sprint between these two teams has been incredible to watch. The other thing I wanted to bring up that we didn't get to at the beginning of the show about last night's game is that the Padres had to face 2 opponents last night because they were gifted with one of America's worst umpires, Laz Diaz, behind the plate. Last year, Laz Diaz graded out as the 6th worst umpire in Major League Baseball. I don't know what his 2024 stats are, but when I typed in, this should tell you, one of these things just in your life, in the Google machine, if you type your name and then something horrible comes up as an auto prompt afterwards, it's a bad sign. I typed in "is Laz Diaz" and it immediately auto-filled the worst umpire in baseball.
Oh no!
Yeah,
he's the new Angel, right?
A little bit. Well, here's the thing: he's horrible at calling balls and strikes. He's just really, really bad at it. He had 10 different games in 2023 where he missed 10 or more calls, 4 where he missed 16 or more calls, and last night, Laz Diaz missed 15 calls behind the plate. He called 8 balls strikes, and he called 7 strikes balls over the course of the night. The one guy in particular that Laz Diaz should send a card to is Tanner Scott, because back-to-back at-bats in the bottom of the 7th inning with 2 strikes, Tanner Scott threw a strike that Laz Diaz called a ball. And those both directly led to on base. Both those players wound up reaching base on walks when he actually punched him out that time.
And when you look at what Braden put up on the screen here, which is the umpire report card essentially, and the impactful missed calls, because some of those calls went the Padres' way, but more of them did not go the Padres' way, right? The 3 biggest missed calls were with Tanner Scott. Tanner Scott to Robles, just like you mentioned, to Crawford, to Polanco. And so you can see how that 7th inning might have gone very differently if some of those calls had been correct.
Yeah, in the top of that graphic that Braden's showing, and they calculate this every day at ump scorecards, if you want to follow them on Twitter. The impact of Laz Diaz's calls led to a 1.28 runs favor for the Mariners. I believe AC had it that 11 of his 15 missed calls favored the Mariners as opposed to the Padres. So having a terrible umpire behind the plate is part of the regular season. Last year, Doug Ennings really messed with the Padres in a game in Miami that they wound up losing, and it's the kind of thing you remember for a long time. But the thing is, you really remember it when you lose the game. We're going to completely forget Laz Diaz's impact on last night because the Padres took care of business and they won 7-3.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of Tanner Scott can also know, hey, it wasn't his best outing, but he would have been out of some of those jams if those had been called strikes when they were. So I think you have a little bit of a silver lining there. And then Manny Machado on his historic home run, the one that he broke the Padres franchise record, he had a missed call too. I mean, he got squeezed there too. And he fouled off a bunch of pitches and waited for his fastball and said, okay, if you're going to do that to me, I'll just take matters into my own hands, hit the ball, and the rest was history, literally. So I think you see a team that's like, again, as like Mike Schildt wants to talk about, not going to take any excuses, going to continue to battle and continue to fight and find different ways to win.
And listen, the one last tag on this is, okay, well, it doesn't matter because we won. Except if he calls the balls right for Tanner Scott gets through that inning 1-2-3.
And you don't have to use
Jason Adam.
Right.
which you wind up using in an up and down, and he wobbles, which means you use Robert Suarez. So Adam and Suarez likely don't even appear in the game if Diaz isn't behind the plate biffing calls left and right against San Diego. So, it's one of those little things. Usually one of my true axioms is winners win, losers complain about the umps or the referees or the moderators or whatever, but really it was a material impact because today the Padres may not be able to use Adam, Scott, Suarez if they are in a 5-2 situation or a 4-1 situation later this evening.
Yeah, and I've said it before, too. I don't, the whole umpire thing, it's usually the calls will go in your direction sometimes as well. So you get the positive benefit just as much as you get the negative benefit. And usually over the course of a season, it balances itself out. But I think last night was a good indication of one where it was pretty slanted.
Yeah.
It was pretty slanted against the Padres. And that's really where you get, the tough ones on those kinds of games.
As soon as automatic ball strike review comes into Major League Baseball, and it could be next year, a guy like Las Diaz is going to get run out of the game.
Yeah.
Because then you're going to have the stat that actually you got corrected 15 times. I mean, just think about how different it is last night. If Scott fires that pitch in, Laz goes, "Meh," and then Higgy just touches the top of his helmet, straight to the Hawkeye, strike 3, see you later. And Diaz has to be back there eating a dozen corrections night after night.
My hope for that is it makes them better umpires. Like maybe if you are going to get called out on it and you're going to be able to have a player win that challenge or whoever's making that decision, maybe it forces you to lock in more. Maybe it forces you to figure out how in between games that you're umpiring, you can become a better umpire, or whatever. Like maybe it makes them a little better is the hope. Otherwise, yeah, you're just going to get because you get to keep your challenges if you win them.
Right.
So that means if you're continuing to win them, you just get to keep calling the bat helmet thing or the helmet, like Craig said.
Just think, how embarrassed would you be? Strike 3, tap, ball 4. Strike 2, tap, ball 2. And after the 7th time that happens,
it's gonna be it's either gonna run you out or make you better. You're gonna have one of two choices there. The strong are gonna survive.
Yeah, and I have a suspicion the older umpires that are on the bottom of the list are just going to figure their way to retirement.
It is true because a lot of those umpires and that is a tough job, and we always talk about that. It's a tough job for them, but. There's ego involved in that as well, and there's a sense of pride involved in that as well. So I think it's going to, by not going to the robo-umps and having that kind of compromise between the human element and also being able to challenge some of those calls, hopefully it does better the umpiring crew.
When we come back, we preview this evening's game in detail, including why I believe you will see a lineup change tonight against Brian Wu that you wouldn't have seen against George Kirby. We'll get that to you, plus how Michael King is pitching maybe as the best of the Padres starters coming down the stretch. All that heading toward Ask Us Anything at the end of the show. 2 o'clock, Win and Chris check in. It's Andy and Elsten, your midday hang with you until 2 on The Fan. 1:23 is the time. Welcome back, everybody. Annie and Elsten here with you on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. We'll get back into some Padres talk momentarily, but first on the 97.3 The Fan hotline, happy to welcome to the show Michelle DeFilippis, going to be appearing at Punches in Little Italy. And Michelle, welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Did I do your last name right? I was a little worried about
you
that.
did.
Okay. Whew. All right, because I could have gone another way. Tell us a little bit about what's going on here Saturday in Little Italy.
All right. Yes. Saturday at Washington Elementary in the heart of Little Italy, we are having an amateur boxing event. We're going to have 10 bouts of 3-round boxing. And it's for fundraising money for the school who's severely underfunded. And hopefully we can get them some programs and much-needed help that they need. 32% of their students identify as homeless. So we're going to have a great night of boxing, food, and fun.
Michelle, I'm reading about this from last year, and the connection to your dad is very strong, right? Both in Little Italy and within the boxing world. Can you tell us a little bit about those connections?
Yes, definitely. My dad promoted boxing in San Diego for over the last 30 years, and he was inducted into the California Boxing Hall of Fame in 2012. And so I was just approached to carry on a fight that he had been talking about before he passed away. And I said, absolutely, let's do it. And so here we are celebrating him and his love for boxing and raising money and giving back to the community, which he loves to do.
All right, so if that was such a big part of his life, how much was boxing a part of your life growing up, Michelle?
Quite a bit. We were at the El Cortez Convention Center the third Thursday of every month for many years while he did his promoting. And we had boxers in and out of the house. He had his own gym where he would hold camps and training up in the mountains. So we all love boxing too.
And who are the fighters? Who are the boxers in this match coming up? And can you tell us a little bit about maybe why people might want to come out and check it out?
Absolutely. Well, a lot of them are up-and-comers, and we have tentative fights, but nothing is absolutely settled 100% because USA Boxing will have the final say on that at the weigh-ins Saturday morning at 8 a.m. So we'll know everything in more detail, but we do have we have a girl fight this year, which is really exciting.
Nice.
And they fought prior, so love to see that. And then we're going to have young ones, 8 years old, all the way up. It's probably 30, I think. And, it should be really great boxing. And, CYAC does all the matching for us, and they've done a great job. So we're just really looking forward to it.
Well, Michelle, this sounds like a lot of fun and a great, as you said, afternoon and evening. First bout set for 6 p.m. And then continuing through the night. Tickets start at $50, and you can go to bobbyde.org. That's BOBBYDE.org to get tickets for Punches in Little Italy. Thanks for coming on and helping spread the word.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You bet. My pleasure. Our pleasure. Michelle DeFilippis joining us.
And for a good cause, the money going to, like she said, help kids who are struggling with homelessness or underserved kids, disadvantaged kids. And so, go check it out. I mean, a night in Little Italy and then a pretty cool match like that, to see some good boxers in the rounds there. I mean, that should be pretty cool, honestly.
Yeah, happy to help promote it and to help get the word out there. And that is, again, Saturday evening. So if you've got nothing planned for the weekend and you happen to be, fan of a little pugilism out there, see people swinging it, come on out.
Michelle's great-grandparents founded Filippi's Pizza Grotto.
Yes.
Which remains a Little Italy staple. Wow. That's
Along
amazing.
with everywhere else, right? I mean,
Yeah.
how many different Filippis are out there?
But how cool to have that boxing connection. And then, like she said, she grew up with it as well. So, yeah, it's a good thing to do in San Diego, a good thing to do on this weekend if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to have you on, and thank you for being on. Okay, back to Padres here for a minute because time to preview tonight's game. Yesterday, we saw the inclusion of a new lineup. We saw Xander Bogaerts move to shortstop. And before we even get into any more permutations or deeper into the weeds, still feels really, really uncertain the future of Ha-Sung Kim for the rest of this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think there was a lot of clarity. Mike Schildt was asked about it, but there was really no clarity yesterday. I personally don't think Xander's going to like flip-flop between short and second, although I could be wrong. At least like while Kim is gone. And if Kim comes back, obviously I assume he moves back to second and Kim takes shortstop, but I wonder if this kind of signals that he's not going to, although I do think that there was, at least something written yesterday about the fact that the team is still confident that he will return by the postseason. And I'm not exactly sure what team officials are saying what, but it doesn't exactly sound like he's completely out, but it also doesn't sound all that confident that he's in. So I don't know where that stands.
I was thinking about this the other day. As every day draws closer to the postseason, we get rid of a lot of the fuzzy clouds and it becomes very sharp and clear. If Ha-Sung Kim can't if Ha-Sung Kim can't throw a baseball from deep in the hole at short and have the mustard on it that he normally has, he can't play the position in the playoffs. We can't have a guy go out to shortstop as a reduced version of himself in the playoffs when one play can be the difference between advancing or having your season come to an end.
Yeah, and if this works, the way that they're kind of doing it with Solano or Rise or whoever's at first base and Jake, sliding over to second and Xander over at shortstop, and it's working fine and your lineup is maximized and you feel like you're getting the most out of it, I don't think you mess with it in any way. I think you just, you got to kind of lock in at some point and say, we ride and this is how we ride,
Absolutely. And, the other part of it is offensive. Like, if Kim isn't fully healthy within a week, well, now, how long is it going to take him to get his rhythm back at the plate? You don't have minor league teams playing anymore. So it's not as easy as just going, okay, we'll roll out to Lake Elsinore and take care of it. Right. The answer that the Padres have had is that they've got kids at the Peoria Sports Complex, and you do have 50 at-bats in a day. But as we've seen with these other guys, it's not the same as actual live action. So I'm really honestly thinking, Annie, and I'm a huge Ha-Sung Kim fan. I said hat because I was just about to say I'm wearing his hat today. I'm a big Ha-Sung Kim fan. But if he's not ready in the next 7 to 10 days, I don't think you can just put him into a playoff situation and expect there to be any success there.
Yeah, and I mean, again, it's like he's not taking the forward movement that they would hope to see. He's throwing across the diamond, but there's reportedly not any zip on his throws. He's still coming out of it feeling pretty sore or pretty painful, whatever it is going on with him when he's throwing like that. So you got to imagine, too, I'm not sure what he's doing on the hitting side, but I would imagine it's got to have some effect there like you're talking about, So I think absolutely. I think this is probably why they made this move. Is it's they have to not necessarily close the door, but make a decision here that we're going this direction. And if something else happens and it's like cherry on the top, great. If Ha-Sung Kim can come back and be 100% and feel great, then I think good. You have more options. But I think they're preparing for this scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I could even imagine a world where Kim is available to come back, but he still is having a little bit of an arm issue, and they say, hey, you know what? Play second base because it's a shorter throw as opposed to playing shortstop. But that's kind of fanciful thinking on my part. Until he's out there on the field, I don't know that he's available to play any position for San Diego. So as a result, now you have Bogarts at short. That pushes Cronenworth to second base, where he has been a reliable defender in the past. His numbers have not been good this year. And it opens first base to Solano or Arise. Yesterday, both players played. Arise is DH, Solano is first base. Today, I suspect that Solano will not be in the lineup in favor of David Peralta. And the reason for that has nothing to do with how Solano did yesterday. He was great. It has everything to do with Brian Wu, who is tonight's starter. Brian Wu is not George Kirby. Brian Wu is heavy fastball, big breaking slider. He is very, very hard on right-handed hitters, and he has been throughout his career. This year he's been good against everyone. He's 7-2 with a 2.36 ERA in 18 starts. He's been terrific. But in his 2-year career against right-handed batters, Brian Wu has given up a 182 average, 219 on base percentage, 275 slugging. He has punched out 97 hitters in 357 at bats, about a 36% strikeout rate. So he's been dominant against righties. Last year, he got lit up by lefties. This year, lefties are just doing better, not lighting him up, but doing better. But all of that leads me to David Peralta off the bench as your DH today and a rise at first base.
Brian Wu, like Craig mentioned, second-year starter, a 16-0 strikeout to walk ratio over his last 3 starts. Did allow 5 homers over 18 1/3 innings, but again, 2.36 ERA. He's done quite well for himself this year, you know. So I think this is one where you're going to try to battle it out, maybe try to get him out of the game if you're not getting anything from him, get to that bullpen. And for Michael King, this is, what did you think about the Mariners? I mean, for the Mariners, it seems like we talked about yesterday, it's home run ball or bust. They don't really do the whole thing where they're really moving runners across home plate. They'll, very, very rarely it seemed like they were stringing together at bats, right? So limit the damage with them, and I think the Padres have a good chance here, but Brian Wu's going to be, at least what we know of him, is a formidable opponent here.
You want for one more day for Julio Rodriguez to be in that what has been season-long slump, because I thought he was very emblematic last night of Seattle's problems. He was the guy coming up with runners on base.
Every time.
Yeah, coming up in big situations, over swinging in those situations, vulnerable to every breaking ball that the Padres could throw his way or changeup. And then when need be, Adam kind of did a trickaroo on him as he was looking changeup, gave him an inside fastball and got him to ground into a double play along the way. The Mariners show a lot of the exhibits that last year's Padres offense did. Of they might do a little bit, but then when they get the runners on, they have a real hard time with the strikeout.
And that feeling of, oh no, here we go again. I mean, Randy Arozarena, he was in I don't remember which time it was, but he was in a position where he could have drove some runs in. He also unable to do it, and you just feel that frustration mounting. And again, I love this debate over bringing a player over at the trade deadline and the stress that especially as a hitter, it can put on a team or on a player. So this is an offense that Michael King hopefully will be able to keep held down, right? And for the Padres, Brian Wu's going to be he's a good pitcher, so try to get your knocks against him or get him out of the game.
The fact that the Padres chose to push up Michael King, I mean, it tells you a couple of things. I mean, one could be as simple as they didn't want King to face the same team consecutive starts as he would have facing the Giants consecutive starts. But the other is that they just prefer the right-handed matchup against Seattle as opposed to throwing Martin Perez against what's generally a collection of right-handed, swing and miss power hitters in the Seattle Mariners. I mean, Martin Perez is generally good for a home run allowed per start, if not 2. So I kind of, without having heard that directly from Niebla, or Schildt wouldn't tell us anyway, but without having heard that directly, that's kind of the impression I get, is that King, from a matchup standpoint against Seattle, just makes more sense than Perez.
Yeah. And again, they could have pushed him back. They could have configured that rotation to give him more rest. And they did give him rest, right? They gave him 2 extra days from his 2 starts ago to the last start. But I think moving Michael King up sends a message of, we need to win these games. And we know he's typically been able to go deeper into games, and he doesn't seem to be exhibiting any tiredness or fatigue or, and like you said, the matchup works. So kind of making those decisions and being able to make those decisions because of those off days too.
Update on the scoreboard. The Rangers got 1 in the 3rd. The Rangers got 1 in the 4th. They go to the bottom of the 4th at Chase Field. It is now 5-2. Arizona leading Texas. They led 5-0 after 2. Going to the top of the 7th at Rogers Center, 1-0. Toronto leading and no-hitting New York Mets. Bowden Francis, 6 no-hit innings so far for the Blue Jays against the Mets.
That's rough. I mean, what's the score? 1-0?
1-0.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
yeah,
anything
we're
could
no-hitting them,
happen,
and then it could be a
but-
walk and a Lindor homer, and it's 2-1.
But Toronto bringing out a no-hitter at this point in the season, or a potential of one.
Keeping our eye on the scoreboard for you. I'll try and offer you one more update in the last segment before we get to Gwen and Chris. But hey, every Mets loss is money in the piggy bank for San Diego in terms of making the playoffs. You don't have to beat all these teams. It'd be great if you do. You can beat all three of them. But you can lose to two and make the playoffs without any problem at all. And the Mets are that third team.
And the Mets really did look hot. They looked like they were getting hot. But if they lose today, and then you're going to face the Phillies 7 times in your next week and a half of baseball, I mean,
good luck.
It's an uphill climb.
It's a climb I'm glad we're not taking.
Yeah, that's the thing. Any team that is not facing the Phillies 7 times right now is happy to not do that. That's a tough stretch when you are fighting for a playoff spot. As
the Phillies are fighting to keep their bye and to keep a top 2 position in Major League Baseball. They want the best record. They want home field all the way through.
They haven't, that's the whole thing about this year's wild card race or this year's division race or whatever. No team is so far ahead that they get to relax at this point. Everyone's really playing for something.
It's making it so much fun. We'll have all that fun for you at 6:40 tonight. When we come back, it's time for Ask Us Anything. That's how we wrap up each show here on Annie and Elsten. And it's time to open up the phone lines. 833-288-0973 is our number. Lines are open right now, 833-288-0973. If you want to give us a call, you've got 11 minutes to do so, and we'll take you on the air. Call us between now and 1:50. We'll get you on the air, guaranteed. Only thing we ask is that you come prepared with a question to ask the show. Doesn't even have to be about sports. Can be about anything. Ask us anything after this quick timeout on The Fan. Annie and Elsten roll until 2. That means we just got a few minutes left, but we'll be right back tomorrow. And we'll be joined by friends tomorrow, 10 a.m. to 11. Ben and Woods will be there. Chris will be there. We will bring you the Round Table, presented commercial-free by San Diego Round Table Pizza. Pizza royalty, also the last honest pizza. So we'll do that. Then we'll be right into the Padres Deep Dive Hour. We play Fast Money tomorrow on the show. And it's a Padres off day. So we'll gin up something silly to do on the show tomorrow as well. We'll figure something out. Right now, what we got figured out is to play this bumper. All right, our number's open, and you still got 3 minutes if you want to call the show. 833-288-0973 is the number. 833-288-0973. Kyle understood the assignment. Kyle called the show. Kyle's on Ask Us Anything. Hi, Kyle. Ask Us Anything.
Hey.
Hey.
How's it going?
Hey.
Love your show, Annie, Elsten, Braden. Real
you.
quick, as we enter season ticket renewals, what is your favorite section to sit in the park?
Good question, Brandon. Obviously, the most expensive sections are the very best, aren't they, Annie?
We talked a little bit about this on the round table, so if you get a chance to go back and listen from last Thursday, everybody gave their opinion, and maybe it'll give you some creative inspiration for where you want to sit. But I do like the right field or any outfield spot. I think is a lot of fun, but really the great spots are the ones behind home plate.
Yeah, and my personal seats are in the upper deck. I don't mind it, but I think the second deck is where you get the very best perspective.
I agree.
Love the second deck.
In terms of, is that ball gone? Because that's one thing that just, when I'm at the game, if I'm too low and I can't tell if the ball's going to be a homer, there's something about it that unnerves me. Mm-hmm. Whereas when I'm up high, I know every time. You know, I'm like, yep, nope.
I've been sitting at field level for the last few years, and I'm like, my eyesight's not as good as it used to be, but I feel like when I go up to level 2, it's always a better view of the game as a whole. I can be more involved in the game.
Yep. The higher you go, I think that is a very good point. You get a better perspective.
You really do. Kyle, good stuff, man. I hope your seats are immaculate.
Let us know what you choose, Kyle.
Yes, down the stretch. 833-288-0973 is our number. You still have a minute if you want to dive in. Yeah, the Toyota Terrace is great. Mm-hmm. In fact, there's a reason I think they price those seats where they do.
Yeah, they're the best.
Well,
I was reminded by the chat that you are actually hosting the roundtable tomorrow, Annie.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, chat. Yes.
Ben is golfing.
Mm-hmm. Ben is. I think he has
He's
anniversary.
Golfing.
Or
No, he has a 2-day golf. I heard them talk about it today. He has a 2-day golf vacation.
May the winds be at your favor, Ben. You'll be missed.
Indeed.
Hit him straight.
Your silly questions.
Straight, whatever that is.
Here's a silly question. We always have backup silly questions for Ask Us Anything. What is a rule you've made for yourself?
Interesting.
What is a rule that you've made for yourself?
I tend to don't fight with idiots. Like,
yeah, that's a good one.
and I mean idiots in a loving, endearing term. But I saw Keanu Reeves say this the other day. Like, this is a viral clip that goes around. He's like, I'm at the point where if you want to say 2 + 2 = 5, say it, and that's fine. So that's kind of where I am. Hey, man, like, I'm not gonna fight with you.
Don't fight with idiots.
Mm-hmm.
Don't roll around in the mud with the pig because you get dirty and the pig likes it. That's the old saying.
I shouldn't say idiots. Maybe they're very smart people. Don't fight with people who just are there to fight, maybe.
Do you have a rule you've made for yourself, Braden?
I like don't argue with morons is definitely
that's probably what I'm trying to say.
Definitely a deal for sure. I do not say that in an endearing way like Annie does. I just try to engage with brick
I don't want to
walls.
really call anyone an idiot. I don't know,
Hey, well, if I argue with you, that means I don't think you're an idiot. So that should be a term of endearment there. But yeah, that's a good one.
What's a rule I've made for myself? I don't know. I mean, try, I don't want to get too broad. But then again, do I want to get specific? Like I have a rule that every morning I try and, take a vitamin drink. And my little emergency, walk the dog. Like I have just routines. Are those rules or are those routines?
Like little health hacks for yourself. That's good.
Yeah. I don't think that's a real answer, but I'm going to go with it. And then I'm just going to pull up Tim in Oceanside, who called the show. And I said if you called by 150, you'd get in. And that thing was ringing. So here's Tim. Hi, Tim. Ask us anything.
Hey, I got a quick question for you guys. If you could choose any other career path, you do a great job where you're at. I'm not saying you need another one. But what would you have chosen as your life's career path?
Is that just excluding radio or is that excluding sports altogether, Tim?
You pick your path. You tell me. Radio and sports kind of go hand in hand since you're on a sports radio network, but you tell me what you would have been if you weren't doing what you're doing today.
What do you think, Annie?
I can't narrow it down. I would love to be a travel host, but that's kind of in the same realm as this, or I'd be working with kids somewhere doing something.
Yeah, I wanted to work in sports, Tim, since I was 16, and it was doing play-by-play. So, I mean, but I would still do that if I had and I still do that when I have the opportunity. When I was a kid growing up in high school, I was on the mock trial team, and we won the Southern California Championship, and it was very exciting to me, and I always thought I would maybe be good as a prosecutor. But then I never did the
law school part,
reading
the law school
or
and the bar part,
classes or
passing tests,
doing all that hard stuff in college. Instead, I took communications, which was much better, much easier.
Yeah.
So that's going to be my answer for you, Tim.
I would love to host like a long form, talking with cool people. Just talking with cool people.
Like Mark Maron's show, basically.
I don't know.
Podcast.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I guess it's like podcasting.
Yeah. You'd like to have a podcast. You still could.
Yeah.
You can.
You could still become a lawyer.
Feel like maybe that ship has passed. Maybe that ship is just
sailed right by.
On into the ocean, not even in the harbor, not even visible from the shore.
Later.
Tim, great question, buddy. Braden, do you have an alternate career that you've locked in?
I'd probably be a football coach.
Yeah.
A college
you
football
already
coach.
are a football coach.
Yeah, that's like high school though, like an actual football coach.
You're an actual football coach in high school.
Doing it for my main profession, where I don't have to work 4 jobs. That would be a good one.
Assistant coach is really a tough career, though, to be honest with you.
It is. You have to move a lot and stuff like that,
and work like 80 hours in a week.
I had an opportunity out of college to potentially do that. I got offered a GA spot at Texas Wesleyan, but I was coming back home working for here.
Living the dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love everything that I do right now, but
yeah.
To work one job instead of 4 would be great.
I know that life.
Yes.
I know that life well. It's hard to do in San Diego.
It's hard to do in San Diego.
Great effort, everybody. Appreciate both of you who called in. Thanks to Michelle DeFilippis for joining us. Thanks to Scott Miller
awesome.
for joining us
both.
earlier. Again, we're back with the Roundtable tomorrow at 10. Gwen and Chris are on deck. For Braden and Annie, I'm Craig. Thanks so much. Up the dads. Let's go Padres tonight.